Jesse, stop. Why? You stop taking my hot dog. Oh, it's Stewie. Oh, um, Stewie says run. Oh, well, welcome back, everybody. We're back at it again here at Barcelona, out in Spain for the
There
final
is
round
no
of
way
the
that
Night
was real.
Owl Championship.
I refuse to believe that was your intro to Night Owl. Ladies and gentlemen, this is still Night Owl, the season finale. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by a rather interesting version of Mike Jones, Stewie in the booth with you. And
Listen,
Mike,
we've had a long
explain
weekend,
yourself.
Jesse, and we're not done. All right. Jesse and I have been commentating pretty much for, it feels like the last 24 hours. We'll commentate for the next 24. It's fine. Everything is good. We're going to have a good time. We're back here at Barcelona with quite a few cars out here on the grid for the finale of the Night Owl Championship. George Boothby, as expected, up at the top of the grid at the near end of practice here. Story of the day through the race session will be, can Boothby keep a hold of that 75 Porsche through the 90 minutes of Barcelona to stay ahead of Samir Foch for victory of the championship. It's actually pretty close. It's only about, what, Jesse, 15 points apart, give or take? 13 points apart here at the end. Boothby has had 4 fastest laps, 4 pole positions, 3 wins, but he suffered on one of the races, and Foch has had very consistent finishes, and it's put him only 13 points behind.
Yeah, it's gonna be very close here between Boothby and Samir Foch. Those are the two we're looking at, but also a little bit of housekeeping, keeping you up to date on what has happened. It's almost a tradition at this point. The final race, of course, is a 90-minute race. That's 30 minutes longer than the normal running order. That's all in order. But you will notice we have the AMs in the field as well. We've condensed both of the splits for Night Owl into one. There is a high and a low silver, and I did ask them, ask the race admin, Ted Edwards, what they were going to do, because there's high silver and low silver. He said that they're just going to manually place them after the race into whatever high or low silver they should be. You're going to have to do that manually. We're going to try and keep up here at home, but effectively there are 4 splits here, even though there you can only see 3 different classes. There is a high and a low silver. We'll try to point that out. A lot of crazy stuff happening here tonight. Of course, the difference in the pit strategy, which is always the kicker here in Night Owl, is going to come into play as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty much it, especially with the multiple pit stops today and the tire stops. It's going to be really interesting. I started this 90-minute finale thing with Night Owl during the very first season, not even season 1 at RCI, season 1 at RLM, just to add a little bit into the mix for it. And then when we started doing these random pit stops as well, each week making different pit requirements, and subsequently potentially even adding the ability to have multiple pit stops, it means that some of these cars are going to be a lot quicker. Obviously the Porsche is something we'll talk a lot about today because Boothby's in it, with it being so different at the start of the stint, being full of fuel near the end of the stint where it's nearly empty. Boothby won't necessarily have that today. He'll just kind of be running on that empty bop the entire time. And so he won't have that huge weight difference between the start and end of the stints as long as he comes in every 30 minutes or so. But that said, the Ferrari with Foch on the tires, not necessarily the easiest thing. That Ferrari definitely has its tire issues. And so it'll be interesting to see maybe if he can get on the hammer and keep that Ferrari, burn the tires off, and then come in a pit every 30 minutes and get some fresh rubber on there. He might be able to do pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we're asking a lot of the drivers here. Not only is it dark in Barcelona, it's also very different to what they're used to. They're used to running for maybe 60 minutes. They have a setup and a strategy for that. They would have a strategy and a setup for a one-stopper. We're not asking them to do that tonight, but before we can get into race strategy, it is time for qualifying. Every single car released from pit lane. There is no class qualifying here. Got 15 minutes to do the business at midnight here in Spain.
Yeah, and I've been talking about the pro championship Something to mention as well, the Silver Championship also is pretty close. And, you know, all these drivers out on the track today as well. We've got Huel, Raphael Huel in the 548 Porsche. He is out there in P1 in the High Silver Championship. Polis shortly behind him, not too far off, and then Flamger behind him, again, not too far off. There's only, 28 points between the three of them. Depending on how they finish, depending if somebody, you know, gets knocked off the track and maybe loses and out of a bunch of damage, has to retire or something, that could be huge implications for that heist. Oh, and of course, only a few AM drivers here today. Frawler pretty much has the championship locked in for the AM split. Suma, Death, and Ren all follow him up on the standings. They're all pretty spaced out for the AM class, but the low silver class also up for grabs as well. Hanala and Mustak very close, and it's only 10 points apart between the low silver class. So it'll be three different huge championship implication battles that we're watching here over this 90-minute race. However, Andre for the Coach Anna Academy 911 Porsche is going to be our first one out on his hot lap coming out of the final chicane. He's going to come down the front straight for the first time.
Well, this racetrack's a very interesting track. It's been reconfigured a couple of times to slow the cars down, but it has maintained a lot of its original character. A long straightaway into turn one. You're going to get as far onto the artificial turf as you can, and then swing it into turn one. That's a right, and then a very quick left. And then turn three, of course, this sweeping right-hander feels like it goes on for days as you continue to climb the hill. Then it's getting on the binders for the hairpin here in a sequence where there are two of them. The first one, not quite as acute as the second, but you want to run out as far as you can. Turn four, a hairpin the opposite direction, more acute in this respect as we start to run down the hill into the lowest point into the circuit. This left-hander inconsequential. You want to get as far as the right as you can and click as much curve as you can as we go up the left-right complex as we continue to rise again. This corner very important to get correct. You don't want to run too wide and hit the dirt. You don't want to go too quickly into the apex either. You want to run out the corner. You got to get a run out of the straightaway. This here is a passing zone. One of the tightest corners on the track here, the left-hander. And it is basically, feels like you are stopped getting it there. And this another right-hander that is very, very slow in comparison. It feels like you're going slow. And now into the modern version of this track that I know a lot of people probably don't like. It's a right-hander into a chicane, a left-right, and then back onto the old circuit. It's going to spit you out on the straightaway. The final turn here, don't underestimate it. You can get it wrong, and if you do, you're going to hemorrhage time down this very long straight. Padre completes a lap, but then Alex Rogers goes provisional pole for the moment, a 1:44.795. Not a bad starting lap. Samir Foch going quicker by less than a tenth, and Chris Vining doing the very same, a 44.69.2, and that's a nice lap for your first lap.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, the Ferraris are pretty decent here at Barcelona, so, you know, it's something that I think that, you know, they definitely can, you know, use and abuse those tires. The tire where the Ferraris have, looks like both of them running a little wide there through the sweeping right-hander. But, you know, so I'm very curious to see how this qualifying works out. We're expecting George Boothby to take the pole position overall. He didn't have a great first lap, likely got caught in traffic. We weren't watching him during the lap, but it's very likely he ended up getting caught in traffic. But he is currently half a second up on his lap. That should put him, you know, getting closer and closer to the top. Samir Foch as well here, about a tenth up. He is the only one up out of the top three, and now actually he just picked up another 2/10 before he's going to come out out through Kamsa and out into the back end of the little straight back here. But he just invalidated his lap, we believe, coming out of turn 9. So even deep in the slipstream, it looks like he's going to run a little wide and invalidate that lap. Here is Mr. George Boothby, 6/10 up and gaining still on the lap. He is sweeping through turn number 12 at the moment, approaching Grub car and then into the chicane here shortly. And here he is. Here's turn 14. Here's turn 15. in the right-hander, and then he'll come out of New Holland and try to catch as much of the curb on the outside without invalidating as he can. Like Jesse said, on that first lap we ran, you can really, really screw up your lap. And surprise, 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 6/10 to the top is George Boothby, all the way up with a 43.665. Is keeping up that dominating performance. It's something we spoke about yesterday, Jesse, before the Friday race at Laguna Seca. Boothby and Jardier obviously didn't make it because they were finishing up a charity race. But we were talking about how we thought that Boothby, who's just more or less kind of surfaced on the ACC scene in this past year, is realistically just one of the most dominating drivers in ACC right now, and it's really showing tonight.
Yeah, it sure is. It is unsufferable is the word I would use whenever somebody has a stranglehold on the car. They basically, in the 1.8 update, they have mastered their craft very quickly indeed, and they've put everybody on notice. Look at that lap from Jordan Daly, the road race 197, all the way to second place. That's incredible speed.
Yeah, Rouge Racing with a 197 of Jordan Daly.
Oh, is that Rouge Racing? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if he meant it to be Rogue, but he spelled it Rouge. So
he meant Rouge. I'm just being a bit silly.
But yeah, an absolutely blazing lap by him. And of course, Jordan Daly, he's not necessarily had the best finishes through the season. He's back P13 in points. He struggled a little bit during this particular season. No podiums to his name so far, but coming out with a very, very strong qualifying lap 8 minutes to go. He's back in the pit lane, getting some fresh rubber on, topping off on fuel, and he's going to have one more run. Alex Rogers is going to come across the line 3/10 up as he, all the way up into P4, 0.837 seconds off the leader. So far is the Porsche Learner drivers. That's another man that has not necessarily had the best championship because he's been in a new car, but very consistent finishes from Alex Rogers has still put him on the bottom step of the podium. And as long as he doesn't have too bad of a finish today, he should hold that spot. Currently, I believe 18 points ahead of Chris Vining, and there's only 2 points between Vining, Pearson, Stechecki as well for 4th, 5th, and 6th. So Alex Rogers, it's been a good showing for him in the Porsche for his first championship in it.
Yeah, it sure has. Something that just occurred. Giannis Tatsopoulos in the 778, who was behind Fuel, has put their car second in high silver right now. Timothy Flamker, who's third in that championship, is inside the top 10 overall and first or pole position in high silver. But Giannis put himself in front of Raphael Huel. That could be huge for that championship. We're paying attention to that. Does Huel have a rebuttal to Giannis's lap? We're going to find out in the next 6.5 minutes to go. Well, your top three, Boothby, Foch, and Pierce. Daly back to 4th. Talking to Daly pre-race, and he seemed very confident indeed. I was curious where that had come from. Well, I think it's very clear on the timing sheet where that confidence has come from. Says he wants to finish top 10 tonight, thinks it's a reasonable expectation with everybody out there. I think maybe a top 5 could be on the card. 6 minutes left to qualifying, and everybody out there trying to get as much as they can. What about Brawler in 11th place in the number 6 AM? That is incredible.
Yeah, Frawler is definitely the one that has dominated the AM class this season. Maybe should be fighting for silver class. I'm sure he'll be up there next season. Maybe just picked up a lot of practice through this season, and it's really helped him, continue to develop his driving skills through the end of the season here, and he's going to be up near the top of this season than fighting for silver next time. There's a little bit of a contact. Look like the Audi. The Audi, I don't think the Audi was sure what was going on with the Porsche there. Didn't know what he should have been doing. And Stechecki went ahead and just kind of, knocked into the big neon green Porsche there. I believe that was the Porsche of, is that the Porsche of Padre? If I'm not mistaken, the bright green one. I cannot remember off the top of my head. No, that's it. One of the other Porsches.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Mustang.
I wonder what was going on there. I think Mustang had blown through turn 1 and was just trying to rejoin the track. And I wonder if Stechecki in the 144 did something not quite as extreme, but very similar, where they just missed turn one. Turn one is a braking zone. You have to stomp on the binders. You have to get the car turned. You can't afford to lose time messing around on the brakes. And a lot of times you end up just missing turn one when you're trying to get every ounce of performance out of the car. I wonder if maybe that's what happened. They both met after they moved through the turn, because it's not the normal apex. It wouldn't have been for that Audi. So very strange incident there in qualifying. You don't see too many of those.
No, you don't. And, luckily I don't think that anything was malicious there, and it wasn't even necessarily that, somebody was actually caused an incident. Just a little bit of like a, hey, I missed this, you missed this. I guess we're all going to come together. And, just a little bit of contact. So, shouldn't be a big deal. Obviously, it is qualifying. No implications for the race there overall, other than maybe a lost qualifying lap. We were watching Magazi come across the line, pick up a couple tenths, put himself up in a 7th, and here's Tcheki finally setting his lap after that contact that we just saw, up into 10th place. He hadn't actually properly set a lap yet, so he's now still near the bottom of the pro field, granted, but at least doesn't have to make his way through all the silvers, at least so far, once the race does start. George Boothby on board once again, just crossed the start-finish line, coming through the first sector of corners here. This is out of turn 3 and then into Repsol turn number 4. He's on about a 10th up so far overall, so he's still got time to gain here if he really wanted to do so. Foch has picked up some time as well. You'll notice there, Jesse, only 2.5 tenths off the back of Boothby at this point, so he's definitely finding some time here and there. Foch also up on his lap, about the same as Boothby is, though. It's about a 10th to a 10th and a half as these guys float through, and you can see just how hard George Boothby is pushing this car. He really just wants to go out and to see if he can set a better lap. You see him just wiggle, 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 wiggle all the way through the corners. He is almost drifting that Porsche through every single corner. Now he's going to break into turn number 10. Now 3 tenths up through the almost stopped left-hander, and then around into sector 3. Jump the curb there on the left so that you can get a good apex on the right. Feather the throttle all the way through, down into second, up into third again as you come into the chicane section. He's now 4 tenths up, almost 5 off the braking, so this is very close to running a 42, and he just lost it there. He just lost 3 tenths coming out of the chicane, but it doesn't matter. He's still going to go even faster. That's going to be a low 43 for him once he crosses the line. 3.97 is George Boothby. I think he's just doing it to mess with Foch at this point.
Yeah, it was an excellent lap from the Yaz Heat driver, but I think it was almost warranted because Samir Foch was getting a little too close for comfort, a little too close for George Boothby's comfort here, and had to pick it up a little bit. But will Samir do the same? Did he pick up? Yes, indeed, did pick up on that lap. A 43.820 takes it down to 4 tenths of a second. He was within a quarter of a second, has a little bit of work to do to get back to that point, but Samir will not give up. George Boothby's raced him all season. He knows that. Here is Timothy Flamger, the Maniac Mavericks driver, who was already pole position in high silver and has taken it to the overall podium. 3rd quickest qualifier, a 44.195. And all of a sudden, Alessio Mellis has taken that right from him. 3rd fastest for Alessio Mellis in the 15 Ferrari. Seeing a little bit of a trend here in the top 10. A lot of prancing ponies.
Yeah, the Ferraris, again, the Ferraris are quick at Barcelona. They're not necessarily the quickest car here, but they're one of. And it's something that I think that we're going to see a strong showing from them during the race, because, again, Ferrari's not necessarily the best on tire wear, but if they can come out and pit twice during a 90-minute race, they're going to have plenty of time. Boothby, he lost it coming out of this corner last time. Is he going to lose it again? 3 tenths up. No, he's gaining. He's gaining, Jesse Lee. That's almost a half a second. Here it is. George Boothby going to come out of the final corner. We're going to see a 42 come on the board across the line at the 42.910. An absolutely blazing quick time coming out of that 75 Yasi Porsche.
Dagger to the heart of any of his competitors. You know what that was? Said he lost that time in the chicane the last time by. He just wanted to drive back around and pick that time back up. That's what George Boothby did. A 42.910, the quickest. Samir Foch does go quicker again, a 43.782, but still the better part of 9 tenths off of the pace, but still the quickest of the rest, as George Boothby might as well be at a completely different Spanish racetrack for how fast that he is around here tonight. Looking like champion elect George Boothby. Timothy Flamger looks like they're going to qualify fifth and quickest of the high silver drivers. Giannis Tassopoulos will start ahead of Raphael Huell here in that battle for high silver. Frawler will be on pole in AM. And is Cole Trickle the leader of low silver, I wonder?
I believe so, because Lewis is a high silver driver. Oh well, he went off track there, did Cole Trickle. But this is the pole position victor here for the low silver class. Interestingly, as well, I was just noting, looking at the point sheet, that Flamger, of course, is on the bottom step of the podium on the high silver thing, and that just picked him up a couple points to get the pole position there. He is edging ever so closer and closer to Tassopoulos, and subsequently up to Huell. Now, he's got a long shot to actually take the victory in the championship for high silver. Huell is quite a few points ahead, but that being said, if he can get a good finish during the race and maybe Huell has a bit of a struggle, he can still take that victory. So Timothy Flamger is definitely going to be looking up towards the top of the grid. He's got his competition behind him already. He needs to stick it there and leave it. And as you said, Jesse Lee, look at all of these Ferraris up near the grid. I think almost every single Ferrari besides for the AM car is in the top 10.
Yes, indeed. Results of the qualifying confirmed, but we talked about points. Let's continue to talk about points. George Boothby leads the pro split, 216, and it's not as wide of a margin as you might expect. Samir Foch in second place there at 203 points. That will be a little bit wider now that Boothby has taken pole, but it came in at just 13 points. Samir Foch has a realistic chance of winning this race. He's going to have to hope that something happens to George Boothby's pace, though. Alex Rogers in third place with 157 points. Chris Vining hanging on to fourth with 139. Thomas Pierce rounds out the top five, tied with Stachecki with 137 points. Behind them in seventh, Bruno Madre in the 911. That's 121 points for them. Judah Savalainen, who joined very late, but did make it into the field tonight, I'm told, at 113 points. Giorgio Magazzi with 111, and rounding out the top 10, Cormac Ryan Meenan on 102.
And unfortunately, the Ryan Meenan brothers not here today. So and Bernier for that matter. So Jordan Daly has the chance to pick up a few positions in the point standings overall with those three missing. Best Bernier, quote, out with the best friend for a few beers and perhaps wasn't in the best shape to drive. The Ryan Meenans unfortunately have caught the virus, and well, I don't even know if they're going to make it tomorrow for the Kyalami race at that point, as Killian was told that he wasn't allowed to go over to his sim rig, so he will not be making it. Following up Jordan Daly, though, is Neil Pimlott, and behind him, Mellis, of course, who is out on the track. He'll need to be fighting Jordan Daly for some points today. Max Payne, Olajars, Trofka, Bauer, and Ulrich wrap up the pro field for there. And here's just the tail end of the pro guys as we silver class.
Well, of course, we have two different silver classes today, and this is the low silver class. Is the 38 with 217 points. Mustak in second place with 207. That 10-point gap still stands right now. Theo Anton in third place, 198 points. Cole Trickle, who was on pole today, gained a few back and still has a shot to win the low silver championship, 183. Gaio in fifth place with 143, 3 points behind him. Cena in 140 points. 69 car, 112, and Weiss, 88. Nobody else in this class has points, unfortunately. Here is the back of low silver. No points here. Nothing to see here. These are not the droids you're looking for. Well, that was two of the categories. There are championship battles rather beside. And I'll just mention them here. Raphael Huel has 237 points over Giannis Tassopoulos, who has 219. Timothy Flamger has 209 points, actually has a few more because of winning the pole position here tonight. All three of those drivers in high silver. All three of those drivers have a chance, a realistic chance, of winning the championship tonight. And of course, the AM championship has Frawler up front with 261 points. It's going to be a big ask for Suma to get up to him and make something happen. It's going to be almost a Hail Mary miracle. He only has 212 points. That's about 50 points difference. You can get 65 points for a race win, though I don't think there are enough AMs in the field today to make that happen. Roman Frawler, likely your AM champion coming into this race. Couple of technical difficulties here as we set up everything. So, a little bit of radio RCI for you here this evening. And hello, everybody. Season's greetings and hope that you are well wherever you are in the world. And it's getting a bit more festive around here and almost bittersweet today. This is Night Owl, is the final series to conclude seasonal operations in 2021 here at Racing Club International. It's been an excellent year for RCI, and it's bittersweet. You love to see it. We've got two or three good championship battles here tonight, but it's also the last major series of the year. There is still racing available, by the way, between now and the end of the year. You can join our Discord, get involved with all of that. But this is the last major series of its kind, the seasonal championships, as I call them. But beyond that, all the other ones have concluded. Friday Champ concluded 1 day ago. This is the last one. Of course, we have the big Jardier 9 hours of Kyalami race coming up tomorrow. If you're looking for something to brighten your Sunday, leave it on in the background. Come join us, have fun, talk to us. It's going to be a lot of me, Mike Jones, Ryan Gill, and some others in the box. We'll be amusing ourselves, and hopefully, you will be along for the fun. Well, I got to say, it's going to be an interesting race here as we've had to make some adjustments. All the cars are going to be put back on the grid. We will go racing here soon, but just one more time, the 9 hours of Kyalami, the Jardier 9 hours of Kalami. And by the way, this is how it works. Jardier asked Mike Jones, "Hey, could you do this?" And of course, Mike Jones says, "What exactly?"
That was pretty much it. That about summed up how we decided on that race. Jardier shot me a message, and I said, give me an hour. I sent a ping out to the staff, says, hey, we got stewards available for this, and within like 90 minutes, it had already been announced. Ryan had made a poster, and we'd thrown it up and got ready to go. So it should be a blast. Like I unfortunately had to dip out of the comments box for a minute to help Ted with the server, which is indeed back up, and we should be starting out the race session here in a few minutes. But it's something that we did the Imola race last year, 9 hours of Imola, and when Jardy asked, "Oh, we'll do a bit of a longer race," and I said, "Well, we did a 9 hour last year. Why don't we do one?" And here we are.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I don't know of any other community that does things like that. Somebody comes to them, a high profile driver and personality like Jardier is, comes and says, "Hey, can you do this?" We've done it in 2 weeks, and it, I had forgotten that we did a 9 hour race last year, which was absolutely brilliant. I think this year is going to be pretty much more of the same, and it kind of fits with the festive spirit of the season as well. Getting one last long race in there. Come join us, hang out with us in just a little bit less than 12 hours. In fact, we'll be talking about various things. I on a previous broadcast was talking about cheese toasties. I'll probably bring that up at some point as well because apparently there are quite a many different ways to make a grilled cheese sandwich, as we would call it, Mike Jones.
What?
Moving right along as we're trying to get all the cars back on the grid, they have a few minutes here, as is customary, to make sure everything's back in place. They've got the right drivers in the car, the setups in the car, everything is where they need it to be. don't jump directly to the grid as we are dealing with a slight issue that had to be resolved on the back end here. But here we are looking down pit lane, all the cars ready here. The by far and away the most cars we've had on a night out grid in quite some time. My only worry, Mike Jones, is will George Boothby have any issues with lap traffic tonight? Certainly, he'll be lapping more cars than he ever has in this series. I think George is well versed in that, but will they play very nicely with him? That is quite another question.
Yeah, I mean that is a question, right? I mean, I don't. I think that George he's going to play nice. He's just not going to play slow, and that's the problem. It doesn't matter if he's playing nice or not. He's just quicker than pretty much everybody else on the grid most of the time in this championship, and it's something that obviously he's become very accustomed to. The course over the past few months, he's going to continue being quick. But that said, I mean, I still have hope for these Ferraris. I think that the Ferraris are going to be quick here today, especially with tire stops that happen and everything. And I think that everyone else should be able to make it up to top of the grid. And hopefully, at least, we'll see a couple of the Ferraris up on the podium. Boothby's going to have problems for them to for them to get up to the top step of the podium.
By the way, Marine in chat has my back. Mike Jones talking about the different cheeses you can have. I was actually told earlier by by someone we work with that they put Worcestershire sauce in their grilled cheese. I thought that was very strange, but I was told to not knock it till I tried it. So I'm gonna have one of those tomorrow, probably on the 9-hour Kyalami stream. See what all that's about.
Messing with some of the server stuff, but we are going to forward over to the grid here in a second now that everybody has joined. To note for the broadcast, we will be seeing everybody labeled as a pro car during the race session today, unfortunately. But it's something that they will, of course, still fight separately in their classes. So George Boothby, Samir Fosh, Melis, etc. will, of course, be pro cars, but we're going to see all the white boards left side of the screen versus having some classified cars. But either way, they will be still fighting within their class championships. Jesse and I will just have to do a little bit of manual work to keep track of who is who today, and we'll keep you updated on that throughout the race. But we are out on the grid. Got 4 minutes here before we go into the actual formation lap and start this 90-minute race. The Porsche there looking awful quick out on the top of the grid, and of course Foch gonna have the right side of the track. And that's the interesting thing about Barcelona, Jesse, I think, is that P1, if I'm not mistaken, actually starts on the outside here.
Yeah, they sure do. A blessing and a curse. It's a blessing if you can get over to the inside as quickly as possible. That's what George is going to try and do here. It's not that big of a deal, but if you get hung out there, you end up side by side and you can get overtaken. You can get yourself in a bad spot. I've always favored starting on the inside lane here. Even if I lost a position because somebody shot around the outside, I've always favored being one of the even numbers, meaning you start on the inside row here, simply for that reason. A lot of these FIA grade racetracks actually have this where pole is on the opposite side of the track of where turn one turns, and Barcelona absolutely no different. But what I'm expecting out of Boothby here is to have the pace to just get right in front of Samir and it not be an issue. But we'll see. Samir has hung tough in some of these races. It would not surprise me if he tried to force Boothby over. We're going to see in just a little bit. Question from the chat: RCI cookbook win? Oh, don't tempt Mike and I. We could fill a book.
What was it? Was it the 24 hours of Kyalami last year that we decided to make food live on the air, or was it a different race? I think it was a 24-hour, wasn't it?
It was a 24-hour. Yeah, it was the middle of the night. It was you and me in the booth. Was Stewie our broadcaster? I feel bad for whoever was our broadcaster. It was Nick Setnick. Yeah. I do feel bad for our broadcaster because you were in the kitchen cooking. I was picking up on the mic. I was explaining how I was making the dish that I was making, and it's one of those things. It's like you got to
I think
make
you
your
made
own fun
cinnamon rolls.
sometimes. Yeah, I did. I was making cinnamon rolls, and I will admit I got all my equipment sticky with that sour cream icing. But we could absolutely fill a cookbook, you and me.
I'm sure that we could in the RCA cookbook. Maybe that'll be some of the merch that next year. Ryan has been working a bit of that. We got some announcements on that here in a couple weeks. Ryan Gill and I believe on either Monday or Tuesday, going to be shooting a little video that Ryan needs to throw a little bit of editing on. That'll be premiering between the week of the Christmas and New Year holidays. And keep an eye on that. Big things coming to RCI next year. We're basically dubbing it RCI 2.0. Merch might one of those something we've been talking about for a while. Ryan's got some visuals that he wants to post up for that and get some discussion on. But maybe we'll have to start a cookbook along with the along with the podcast, Jesse.
Yes, indeed. Well, there's a lot of things coming. We are dubbing it RCI 2.0, and that's for good reason. And it's not all boring stuff that you don't care about either. If you're a driver, if you're a race fan, there's going to be a lot of information that you guys are going to absolutely love, and they're welcome changes indeed. We're already assured of that. It's going to be just a fantastic announcement, not only for us, but for everybody involved. And no matter if you're a viewer, spectator, or a driver, there's something in that announcement for literally everybody,
Yep.
and that's what makes it so brilliant. Doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you work for RCI. There's something in that announcement that's going to make you very happy indeed. One great thing about having the lower split merged with this split, Mike Jones, is I get to watch a Jaguar.
Yes, sir. I didn't see that. But we do. The 762 of Anton, Teo Anton, is in the Jag. You are correct. Bright green one too, which I'm a fan of. Not quite as
Upper
neon
color of
green
a
as the
Jag.
yeah, not quite as neon green as the Porsche out in front of him, but yeah, that's like army green, I think is what they call it, right? British Army green.
British Racing Green, and I can tell you this: Tio Anton's done a really good job in the low silver split in the 762. Third in that split, we talked about it. We showed you the points. They're not out of this championship. They have a shot here in the final week to win this thing. They're going to need a little bit of help from Mustak and Eggert in front, but still, they have a shot in a Jag all season long. They have kept it in contention. A couple of podiums, a win for Tio Anton as well. It's been a pretty decent season. The best performance from a Jag since Diamond Drive, I think.
Yeah, which that's another thing. Here in a couple weeks, might have another championship come back to Wednesdays. We'll see. Will we see some Jaguars in that one? Well, we're gonna find out pretty soon. George Boothby leading the grid along on the formation lap here for the finale of the Night Out Season 7 Championship. Bosch out behind, Mellis Vining behind them. These guys are going to bring themselves around the slowest they will go around this track, they hope, for the remainder of the night. Hey, am I wrong? You're laughing at me, but am I wrong?
Oh, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at how genuine of a statement that is. That's what I like about working with Mike Jones. He tells you how he feels, and that is a dead set sort of situation. This is as slow as they ever should be going, unless something has gone completely wrong. I don't think that's going to happen, but this start might be the championship for Samir Foch. He knows he has to get this right. He hasn't always had great starts to some of these night out races. He's going to have to make this one a mega start. He knows that George Boothby is a little bit quicker, and by a little bit, I mean significantly. What can Samir do to sort of rein in George Boothby? Could he potentially use pit strategy to maybe get into a position where he could battle George? Don't know. All we know, 2 pit stops tonight.
2 pit stops, 2 tire changes, plenty of fuel that will be taken as well. Mandatory 30-second pit stops with the tire change will be had by each driver here. 27 will take to the green flag. How many will finish? Find out here in about 90 minutes. 90 minutes and change. You guys progress through the formation lap. About halfway along the track, they're going to start stacking up. Double file here. You can see the cars speeding up a bit. they approach into Sector 3. Boothby and Foch playing with each other a little bit. And I'm realizing, Jesse, that actually we had it wrong. The grid was actually a little off on the actual grid. Boothby
Oh, I
will
see.
have the inside line. So that's interesting because again, I mean, like the inside and
It's
outside line
reversed.
both can be good here. I mean, because turn 1 has that switchback, right? It's the same thing as like Hungaroring. Me and you each time we're Hungaroring, it's the same thing. Sometimes you want to be on the outside of turn 1 to get the inside of turn 2. We're gonna find out here as they're approaching the start line, going green here at Night Out Season 7.
Couple of drive-through penalties for cars starting out of order, but it's 2 and 3 wide. Contact in the back of the pack as they go 3 and 4 wide. A clean getaway for George Boothby. Samir Foch will slot into the second place position. Vining and Mellis all side by side. They're going to be side by side for first here. Foch has done it. He's got side by side. Off the track is one of the Ferraris. They're still side by side. Oh, it's a huge crash. Terrible crash into turn 3. A couple of cars off as they get tangled up. Samir Foch back in second place, looking for a way around. More chaos. Giorgio Magazzi involved. Several cars off into turn 2 and 3 complex. They all get it going the right way finally, but a clean getaway after a harsh but fair start to the race from George Boothby. He almost got by Samir Foch. Turns out not to be the case. Foch ends up coming out in second place. If that's the last gasp for Samir Foch, we're going to find out, hanging to the back of George Boothby for now.
Yeah, for now is going to be the key word here. They're going to come out of turn 9 and out onto the back straight, and Foch will have the advantage coming down the back straight a little bit. Of course, that Ferrari much quicker than a Porsche in the straight line. He'll have a bit of the slipstream there, but how soon will Boothby get away? Here is back in P8. This is Nilla for the Nissan Racing team, and the number 38 actually driving a Nissan GTR, which I'm a huge fan of. There is, I think that's Jonas Savalainen, and it is indeed. Up into P10 is him. He got a big old jump off the start through the instance, but fortunately has that start position drive through. There's contact in the back of the field. More contact as they tried to get out of the way, and just not enough. The Porsche makes contact with the Jag. That's Anton in the Jaguar, is just suffering so badly to contact there. He's probably gonna have some damage from that second contact.
Trying to figure out who that was. Was that Kylie? It looked like a Porsche that he had contact with. I can't figure out in the dark who it was. Jordan
It was
Bailey here,
yes.
up to 4th place here. And Rogue Racing 197. He thought he had a good car. It looks like he does. Currently fighting with Rogers for that position. Rogers the fastest car on the racetrack, but has been passed up by Daly. So that tells me Rogers had a bad corner. That's all it takes here in the pro class, is one bad corner and somebody's going to get by you. But looking like a rocket ship is Jordan Daly.
That McLaren 720S of Jordan Daly definitely looking pretty good here early in the race. We're going to catch a couple replays of the start. Here is into turn 1. This is the contact.
Oh my goodness!
They're pushing 3 wide in there, and it just did not work too well, even as they sort out of the corner. Oh, it was the Audi. Actually, the Audi hopping over the curb is what ended up causing that contact. I believe that was Stechecki, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to watch it one more time from a slightly different angle. Watch the Audi down on the bottom of your screen. He hops over. And that one as well up in the front, hopping over the curb as well. So that curb caused 2 separate incidents there. And here's the remaining section of it, the aftermath that you can see there in the background. Steward's gonna have their work cut out for them through the first couple of sections of corners here on deciding whose fault is which. But that curb through that first corner, Jesse, can just be so dangerous. Here's the back of the field. What happened back here? Even before they made it to the corner, just some braking issues there. And yeah, this is the Stewards. I can just see the steam coming off their fingers at the moment, trying to get through these incidents, because it is going to be a messy one. Here's some more later on in the race, hopping over the corner of the 3rd sector, and that's, I believe, the Jag going around.
Yeah,
and
that's
the contact there in the background.
Theo went around there. Anton, that was that accident. He was collected by a Porsche as well, so more significant damage. Another touch there in the chicane, and trying to get out of the way. It's difficult to argue if that was the right decision or not. Luckily, we have our team of stewards to determine if that was the case, but they certainly have their hands full here in this race now. That was a messy start, one of the messiest starts in quite some time. I can just list off some of the cars that have been involved in accidents. The 34, the 762, the 889, the 911, amongst others. The list is so long, people. It's nearly impossible to go through them all, as it's very dark. I didn't catch all the numbers, but those are the ones I did catch. But that is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a complete list.
Yeah, as the Nissan actually run a little wide here coming out of turn number 10, and he's going to try to hop over the curb there, but he did lose a position to the asset that was behind him. That's Tassopoulos in the 778, now out in front of the Nissan Racing Team, number 38. So Hanila rather going to lose a position there. Just those small braking opportunities. Jesse, you talked about it during the qualifying sessions. We were taking the hot lap. It's so difficult at times to break into turn 10, such a good passing opportunities that if you mess it up ever so slightly, somebody's going to slide on past you, and that's what happened with Tassopoulos.
Alpha, one of our stewards, who should be knighted or sainted depending on where they hail from in the world, has told us, yeah, it's going to be a little while. They're going to have to sort that out. So they are looking at it. Oh, Colt Trickle here, hard into the wall. I don't think he made contact. I just think he overdid it.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is, and it's something that maybe he's just not quite used to this track in the dark. And I think he had a little bit of damage from the early lap 1 incidents as well. I think there's going to be quite a few people floating around with that little bit of damage, and realistically, that can throw off your arrow just enough that if you brake just a little wrong, maybe you hit a curb a little bit wrong, maybe you brake a little bit too late, or even too early at times, that can just throw you off track like that if you get a curb wrong here. There's not quite as many curbs as comparison to yesterday that are necessarily going to throw you off and throw you directly into a wall. Yesterday, of course, at Laguna Seca, it's famous for those sausage curbs on the inside, but there are quite a few of them here at Barcelona that if you hit them wrong, you will just go flying sideways, and it's a little difficult to avoid the walls here. Even though it's a big track, you can get thrown off and tag a wall.
So just a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to have to keep you up to date because we don't have the color-coded tabs. One thing I can tell you, and we're going to look at a replay here. This is Thomas Pierce. This is running around the 11th place position. Was there contact made on the pass? Nope, just a nice pass. Nice, clean pass. That's how you draw it up into that very harsh, very slow, perhaps the slowest corner on the entire racetrack. That left-hander at the end of the back straightaway. But a nice pass by Thomas Pierce, the G, of course, 131, getting that done and up into the top 10. But what I was going to say, tried to keep you up to date. These are not all pro cars. There's pro, high silver, low silver, and AM. We had to reset, which meant that they lost the color coding. We will try to keep you up to date. One thing about keeping you up to date is Yannis Tassopoulos is leading in high silver, as it is very apparent to me that Timothy Flamger was involved in that opening lap melee. He's down in 17th place, and now Yannis Tassopoulos leads this race and has a little bit of a chance now to win this championship. He didn't need too much help, but certainly leading in his class is helping his case for the 778.
And now Raphael Huel, of course, is the one leading the high silver class overall on the points, so he is still up in the race as well. He's actually ahead of Flamber back in P13 is Huel, and he's definitely up on his lap at the moment as well. He's 0.8 up on his fastest lap, so he might have gotten a little bit of clean air. We might see that 548 Porsche start charging up the field a little bit, chasing down Tassopoulos to see if he can't pick up those points and pick up those positions. But as it stands, not too many points between them, as Jesse said. So realistically, depending on where these guys finish, we might see Tassopoulos have that chance at P1. Currently on board with Chris Vining in another massive accident, has not gotten in a massive accident so far this race. Done a good job avoiding the turn 1, lap 1 instance. He's trying to chase down Alex Rogers ahead. And it looks like pretty much all through the top 10, besides for these guys, more or less have sorted themselves out a little bit. You can see just how quick this Ferrari is going down into turn 1. Just so much quicker than that Porsche. That's really what's going to play in these Ferraris' favors here today versus the Porsches. But as I was trying to say, Boothby, 2.5 seconds ahead. Foch, 2.5 seconds ahead or so of Mellis. 2 seconds ahead of Daly. This whole top 10, they're all pretty close, Jesse, but they're all, spread out ever so slightly. But Boothby not taking off quite as much as I may have thought he might have.
I was just going to say, credit to Samir Foch. He's kept it within 3 seconds for the opening part of this race. He's doing everything he possibly can do. Peter in here, maybe getting a move done on him down the inside. Neil Pimlott gaining a spot back, and as easy as you please. Will Timothy Flanger follow through? Will not on this occasion. Has to still go back into line here. Trying an outside pass here into this hairpin. Doesn't usually work, but it might here, considering the class difference. We'll see. He does indeed. Oh, contact there as he tries to make the pass, but a pass made nonetheless. Rin down a few spots, but not for class, so he will not really care too much about that. Thomas Pierce on the warpath here as he's gained another position. He's got by the 38 Nissan and up to 9th now.
Yeah, Pierce in that 131 trying to make up as many positions as he can. I think he lost a few off of the opening laps. Even if he didn't get shuffled back too much, he wants to make up more positions as it is. Of course, P5 in the championship points. He is directly tied with Stachecki, who was caught up in part of the earlier incidents as well. So he's currently beating to Stachecki by a couple positions, and that's really where he needs to stay at the moment. So I think more than anything, passing that Nissan is mostly about putting the Nissan between him and his direct rival of the 144 Audi, as we're seeing our first pit stop perhaps here. Frawler going to go ahead and come into the pit lane for the RSF Racing team and go ahead and make their pit stop. We do have 2 pit stops here today. Of course, tire stop is required to be taken. However, the problem is there is a pit window. That means that the first car that came in, he will not make that cleared out. Pit window will actually open in 3.5 minutes and will run for 60 minutes during the center of the race. So Frawler, whether maybe he had some damage that had to come in, or whether it was a scheduled pit stop that maybe he took too early, got the call in to come into the pit lane, and as a mistake, due to Savalainen sliding past some of the lower class cars here, but for himself, just trying to get back up the grid, off the drive-through.
Savalainen started dead last in this race, joined sort of near the end of qualifying, but back to Roman Frawler for a second. That is your AM leader. Got a nice healthy points margin here, so he didn't need much, but he was already a lap down when he came to pit lane. I think Roman was involved in the opening lap antics and has continued to try and sort that car out, but still has to make 2 legal pit stops inside the pit window. Not quite there yet, but we mentioned this when we were looking at the standings. I just don't see how anybody can catch Frawler as long as he does 80% of this, or 85% of this race and finishes. I just don't think it's possible. I think regardless of how miserable his race has started here today, I still think he's going to be AM champion at the end of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, all he knows is he just needs to finish the race. And so even if he gets damaged, he's really just playing Sebastian Bernier's school of driving at the moment, to the checkered flag, and no matter what is Sebastian Bernier's motto. And even though he did not make the race today because of outside influence, when he is on the track, that is pretty much what Sebastian will do every single time. That's really what Frawler needs to do. Savalainen has another drive-through here, and we're waiting on penalty reports possibly here. Track cuts, I think, is what this is, Jesse Lee. So Savalainen going to catch another drive-through. Stewie's actually confirming that at the moment. Yeah, so track cuts for Savalainen already, not even 15 minutes into the race.
Yeah, that's very strange indeed that you would have had that many. Could argue maybe.
It's very easy to cut track cut here.
Well, what I'm thinking is maybe he got 1 or 2 of them trying to avoid accidents. You can do that by avoiding accidents, and maybe in this battle with trying to get back up through the field, maybe he extended one more time, as you sometimes do, and got that penalty. That's the only thing I can think of, because that was really quick. I imagine he had to take some evasive action early. That got him some track cuts, so that's rather unfortunate for Savalainen. Barely made it into the race, and his night just got a little bit tougher. He'll have to make all of those passes he just made at least one more time. But hey, you get drive-through out of the way early. That way it doesn't happen late in the race, right? Silver lining?
Very possibly. And when we talked about this, or me and you didn't talk about it rather, but I heard David Chris and DJ Clark talking about it on the SRO broadcast after me and you left it last night. They were talking a lot about that. It's like, hey, you know, if you're getting the drive-throughs, at least get the drive-through early on in the race. That way you know where you're at, right? If you get the drive-through late in the race, you don't know where you're going to end at. But if you get the drive-through early, you get shuffled back a little bit. Maybe you lose 20, 30 seconds, and you go, okay, I've got an hour, 15 minutes. Here, make up the time. I'll be good to make up that time because I know where I'm at on the track, and I've got plenty of time to do it. There is some of the passing that was going on with Savalainen.
Sure, it's
sorry, no, that's the 95.
Up.
Yeah, that's the 95 of Ted Edwards getting crossed up, as Jesse said. Ted Edwards coming out of that final corner looking like a rocket in that Mercedes AMG. And the pit window is now open. By the way, we are seeing a couple people dive into the pit lane for their potential pit stops as Juna Savalainen has received himself a stop-and-go 30 for speeding in the pit lane.
Oh my goodness, when it rains, it pours. I feel like Savalainen's done that in the past as well, trying to clear a penalty and getting a worse penalty because of it. Stop-go 30, that will not be what they were looking for. Was that what that was? Or was that something else? Yes, that must have been for speeding in the pit lane. So, interestingly enough, there was an incident in qualifying, right, that we didn't talk about. It was a warning for the car 307 for use of in-game chat. Now, if they get another warning in the race, the 307, that will be converted to a 5-second penalty. Just keep that in the back of your mind. They're still looking over those lap 1 incidents. We were told it was going to be a minute, and it certainly has I'd rather them take their time, get it all correct, because that was such a multi-level accident on a lot of different occasions. They've been told by Alpha that there was 2 big accidents that led to several other contacts. They have to review each single one of those and make sure they get it right. It can be time consuming.
Yeah, because the thing is, you know, you need to start with the one that's furthest up the grid and then go from there, right? Because you don't know if perhaps, you know, the first incident really led to the second incident. If you judge the second incident without judging the first incident, then it might be, oh wait, hang on, actually now looking at this one, it looks like that this was all checked up because of this, and everybody was 20 miles an hour slower, and blah, 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 right? So all of these can affect each other as they go down. So realistically, they've got to judge all of them and look at all of them as a whole and individually and make up their minds as to what they're doing, you know, through that. So it's going to take them a few minutes. Luckily, hasn't been a whole ton of contacts happening through the you know, now that we're past the opening lap of the race. Definitely a couple knocks here and there, but the field has a lot of it anyway, kind of spread itself out a little bit. Jordan Daly making his way through a couple of the lap car traffics. One of his twin McLarens out there. Looks like they're almost running the same paint job, but not on the same team are those 2 McLarens. Jordan Daly holding on to this 4th place ahead of Chris Vining for the moment. That Ferrari just not able to catch up to him so far, but that said, Jordan Daly not able to catch up to the Ferrari in front as well, and there is our first penalty for a collision. Alpha just handed you a slap of paper, Jesse Lee, and I'm seeing an SG10 on Neil Pimline. I'm going to assume that's for that.
Yeah, you sure are correct. Stop go 10 for car 913 for lap 1, turn 1 crash involving the 889 and the 6. Stop go 10 for car 913, multi-car takeout into turn 1. We saw the replays earlier, and it's deemed that that is exactly what's happened there. So stop go 10, also 5-second penalty for car 889 for avoidable contact when rejoining the track after the accident. And that is classic. Classic mistake there. Your head's not in the right place after contact and you make a silly mistake like that. The stewards do not like it when you rejoin the track perpendicular to the flow of traffic. You're supposed to get up to speed, almost like you're entering a highway or an interstate. And I felt like that was coming for the 889 because they just sort of merged back on as if they were coming off of a side street, and that invited more contact. So penalties, 2 of them coming out. The stop go 10 for the 913 and a 5-second penalty for the 889. I don't feel like they're done with lap 1 yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think those are just some of the initial decisions that they made, realizing that no matter what, the 913 did make the big mistake that caused a lot of the incidents there, and now they're going to cycle through the rest of them as well. And keep in mind, of course, we had incidents further on during lap 1 as well, around the turn 10, 11, 12 section. Of course, we saw that with Anton in the Jag being one of those victims of some contact, or perhaps, well, we didn't see the entire thing. I don't necessarily want to say he was the victim of the contact yet. Stewards will decide that one. Here's back on board with Samir Foch. He is just kind of on an island at this point, 5 seconds ahead and behind of George Boothby and Mellis, respectively, here. And it is going to be a situation of George Boothby starting to take off. I think he held it to a couple seconds for a little while, but now we're 20 minutes into this race. He's 6+ seconds ahead of Foch. Pit stops will start happening here within the next 5 to 10 minutes for the first round of stops at least. I'm curious to see, Jesse Lee, how much damage gets repaired in the pit lane. The normal pit stop here, I believe, is around 1:10 for a tire stop from in to out on the pit lane. So how many people will we see lose a few seconds due to some of the damage that they may or may not repair from the start of the race? Jordan Daly, well, defending against Chris Vining, but holding it steady so far is this 197 Rouge Racing 720S. Vining looking to the inside here as they come into the hairpin on the back end of the track. He's gonna keep it there as they come through the next section, but no, Jordan Daly got the run off the corner, and he's gonna go into turn 12, or 11 and 12, out ahead of Vining one more time. We're only on lap 11, Jesse.
Yeah, we sure are. We're getting close to what the normal race distance is. First 30 minutes going by very quickly indeed, but to Chris Vining's credit, we saw Daly get by Rogers and thought, oh man, Daly's flying. Vining did the same thing and has caught Daly, so how fast is Vining doing? I mean, Vining is absolutely flying himself, but catching and passing, two different things. The intent's there for Vining. We'll have to see if it works out for him. Already inside the top 5, looking for a little bit more here. Shout out to Mellis, by the way, the 15 Ferrari. Finding their own business in 3rd place, nobody around them, having a great race, survived the start. Brilliant start indeed for Mellis in 3rd. And Yanis Tassopoulos, who is up to 7th place overall now, leading in their class, doing everything they can to try and win this championship.
Getting past Daly, actually. Stewie, can we cut to them and get that replay real quick?
There you have it right there. Chris Vining gets the pass done, and this is how it works. Just a little bit wide, and by a little bit, I mean a lot by Daly. Almost as if he let that occur offline into the first hairpin and down to the second hairpin. It's a done deal. Vining, easy as you please. You won't have too many passes that easy.
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Jesse. I just noticed that was happening up near the top of the field, but that is Vining, of course, picking up position. Here's Flamger picking up a spot on the Porsche Mustang there. Yeah, that bright neon green Porsche. Flamger going to make himself up a spot. And I am not remembering what class Mustang is in. I believe he's in the low silver class. Yes, he is. So he's in the low silver class, so that's not a points position, but that is an on-track position for those guys, and it means Flammer can continue his charge up the field and try to get past Huell and potentially get up to this man right here, Thomas Pierce, and fight him for the points. Thomas Pierce all over back of Lewis, trying to desperately get past him. He looks like he's faster than David Lewis. They're coming out of the straight. The Ferrari does generally have the legs out on the straight. The question is, how much wing is that Audi running? Is he going to be quick down the straight? And it looks like Pierce got a little bit of a bad run, but he's trying to flash him. He wants by. He knows he's faster. He wants through, but he's not going to get it done here through turn 1, as we're seeing some traffic come out of the pit lane. They are clear of them before they get in. Won't interfere with this fight for the moment. And it's going to settle down back into the middle of the track, where Pierce does look stronger, waiting for that mistake to happen. There's a slight one from the Audi. They're going to come through the sweeping turn 3 right-hander. Still flashing the lights, trying to distract him. Here in the dark like this, it is definitely distracting to see those flashing lights in your mirror, but Pierce looks like he was a little late on the brakes, had to back up, and that's going to lose him a couple tenths, and he's going to have to back out and try to make the move coming into turn 10.
Well, as you might expect, I have been doing the maths, and I'm very curious how close Tassopoulos is to taking the lead in High Silver Championship. He's a few points away. He's made up 12 on Raphael Huel, and because Lewis is in between him and Giannis right now, so he's making up a considerable amount of points. He is less than 8 points back now. Actually, a bit closer
What
than
did I
that.
say?
in
Turn
fact.
10.
And there you
Oh!
have it right there, completely off the track. That is not the racing line for David Lewis, but he gets it back on the racetrack. And that was a moment that he would rather us not have caught, but a pass made nonetheless. Thomas Pearson, the 131, continuing to march to the front.
And easy. You can make it up. Well, of course, Jesse, you were doing the math on it. Pierce needs to get up in front of Vining to make up the positions for points. So he's got a few more positions before he's going to get up there. Rogers here as well. He's bleeding points off by being back in P6. Looking at the points, he would really have to lose a lot of positions to lose his third place position on the point screen. He is 18 points ahead of Chris Vining as they start the race, and so far even 2 positions behind. That does put him in a good place. That said, Jordan Daly looks like he might be starting to struggle here. He's lost a lot of pace. He might need to come in and pit here pretty soon, maybe burned off his tires early. But that said, pit window is open. They are approaching that 1 hour mark. Cars that are struggling for damage, cars that are struggling for early tire grip, they can come in and pit. And it's nice temperature out on the track, 24C in the ambient, 24C on the track. The tires should do pretty well to heat back up. However, Jesse Lee, is that a drive-through for a penalty? I saw Alpha hand you something. Was that track limits, or is that Vining did a bad?
Well, I can tell you there's been a warning for car 15. The 15 encroaches on another car at the exit of turn 1. And so a warning for car 15. That was on lap 1, turn 1. Lap 1, turn 2, drive-through penalty for car 113. Rejoins poorly into the middle of the track, causing the 911 to take avoiding action that leads to a takeout. And that is going to be a drive-through for a poor rejoin on lap 1. A warning for car 113, and this is an additional warning on top of the drive-through for the above penalty as well. So that is a drive-through and a warning all rolled into one. It's not going the 113's way.
It is not. No, Vining's definitely going to lose some positions off of that. It is roughly a 35 to 40 second drive-through here at Barcelona. It is not necessarily the shortest pit lane. Is Barcelona, so Vining's going to lose probably about 8 to 9 positions by the time he comes out. And as I said, Jordan Daly, not surprised at all, dove into the pit lane near the top of the hour here. He wants from fresh Pirelli rubber on that McLaren to get himself back out on the track and hopefully see some grip in those tires through the middle of the race. But here is George Boothby for the Yas Heat 75 Porsche. I don't know. What can we say about him, Jesse? He's winning.
George Boothby, he's a guy that exists. He's really fast. He picked up the Porsche, and he's already better than I could ever be. It's sickening to look at. That's George Boothby.
Yeah, that about sums it up.
Love the guy to death. Lovely guy. Can't stand him on the racetrack.
He was joking around in practice. They were joking about putting some ballast on him, and Boothby said, "Yes, give me all the ballast." So I did. And then he complained, "Well, now I'm as fast as a GT4 car," and he's still out there probably doing faster laps than me and you could do. So, it's...
Like I said, George Boothby, lovely guy, excellent human being. Can't stand him on the racetrack. Just absolutely not. He is disgusting behind the wheel of a race car. And George, I hope you hear that. And, one thing about the Chris Vining drive-through penalty is that would have promoted the Jordan Daly car back up to 4th place. It will promote Alex Rogers back up to that position because Daly has served their first of 2 mandatory pit stops on the night. But eventually, that will promote Daly back up there with Rogers, and Vining's progress that he'd been flying up the field, that will reset his progress as well. He'll have to do that all over again. And stop, go 30 for Chris Vining.
Yeah, and he immediately came out of the pit lane and towed that car back to the pits. I think Vining just decided that it wasn't worth it at this point. He's going to go ahead and actually forfeit the race, which is surprising to me still, because even though he would have lost positions, he's overall now going to get 0 points for the day by not completing 85% of the race, if that's the case. So that means that at minimum, Pierce, Tcheki, Madre, and Savalainen and Magazi should all overtake him in points. Actually, Magazi's not here today, is he? No, so Magazi's not here. So everybody else that I mentioned,
No, Magazi
is
is here.
Is he?
He's 17.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, that's right. He had the early issues, some of the early issues on lap 1. So yeah, he is back in 17th. Yeah, so all of these cars are now going to take over Vining's position in the points. That's going to demote him down to almost P9, maybe P10, depending on how the finish shakes out. So Vining pulled a Savalainen today, had the drive through, got the stop and go 30, except he decided it just wasn't worth coming back out on the track. Savalainen still out there driving near the back of the field. I think he's just enjoying driving around in a nice, crisp, cool evening. Well, evening, night. It's midnight. We're gonna call it nighttime.
What's that famous rap producer say on the beginning of all their tracks? Another one. I do have another one for you. Warning for car 911 for avoidable contact. That lap 1, turn 12 incident. 5-second penalty for car 762 for avoidable contact with the 913 and the 911 on the same corner. And a racing incident between the 923 and the 100.
Yeah, see? Boothby's dad back in the chat. Oh, I lost it. I lost it.
Dr. Glock, who is George Boothby's father for the uninitiated, joins us from time to time. It is nice to see you, Mr. Dr. Glock, again. It's been a little while, but he says in chat, he's pretty awful IRL too. I'm his dad, trust me. I don't believe that for 1 second. Does George have an awful bone in his body, I wonder? I can't imagine him being unkind.
Oh, man. Well, especially since Boothby just had a kid, so we've now got Grandpa Dr. Glock out here.
Oh, my... it's Grandpa Glock!
Grandpa Glock. What just in the chat? Maybe, I don't know if he was a grandpa before this or not. I actually don't know if Boothby has any siblings or not, but... I do believe that was Boothby's first, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he had one. No, it was. I think it was Grady. Maybe that. I don't even. I lose track of all these guys and their personal lives. They're fast on the racetrack, and that's what Boothby's doing at the moment. Well, 12 seconds ahead of Samir Foch at the moment. We have seen more pit stops continue to cycle through. Ellis, Rogers, and Pierce, and Tassopoulos actually came in for their pit stops, as did Lewis, Hughes, Tcheki, etc. Most of the drivers have come in for their first stop. Is only the cars that you are currently seeing in the top 5 that have not come in for their first set of pit stops. Slamger in at the moment. Boothby's not streaming, so I can't spy on him today and figure out where he's at with fuel. But I do know that Foch will be coming in within the next lap here or so, as he is running low on fuel. So Rogers didn't have quite as good of a stop as Daly did. Daly came out ahead. Rogers, oh no, I apologize. Rogers actually had a second faster pit stop than Jordan Daly. He must have lost it afterwards.
Yeah, so remember, Daly passed Rogers early into the race and set sail, so he had a significant gap, did Daly, over Rogers, 4 or 5 seconds. Rogers just had a stellar pit stop and an in or out lap, caught all the way back up to Daly. Didn't quite get by him. Going to be curious to see if Daly can drive away for a second time, but Alex Rogers with an excellent pit stop, caught all the way back up to the what will eventually be for the 4th place position. I know it's for 6th now, but it will eventually be for 4th, and these two continuing their excellent battle that they've had here. We enter the final hour of the Night Owl season, and Jordan Daly's got off. He's got off now.
Jordan Daly makes another mistake, this time early on in the stint. Rogers slides on past early in the stint instead of at the last second. Of course, Rogers did come by him through the chicane, or near the sector 3, just before Jordan came into the pits. There's Jordan Daly making the mistake. That's going to throw him back into 5th position overall. for the moment. He's really going to have to work on it. Of course, as Jesse was just saying, he was looking very quick through the first half of his stint. We'll see if he's able to get that going once again, and get himself back out on the track and keep going. But Ted Edwards currently defending against Kylie here, the 911 Porsche behind him. Looking like he's getting a bit of a wiggle here and there as well in that Mercedes-AMG Race Ventura 95 machine. Porsche going real wide out of New Holland corner. And there's not going to be a whisper to think of there into turn one. The Mercedes is just going to take off down the straight. Slipstream or not, you're not going to see a Porsche catch a Mercedes down the straight.
Yeah, it's very much true. A question from the chat asking, is a stop go 10, does that actually do anything if they have to pit twice? Well, yes, it does. Because they have to pit twice, they have to take tires both times, and they have to sit there for an additional 10 seconds on top of that. So no matter how long your stop is, it's always going to be 10 seconds longer. Yes, you can come in and clear the conditions of one of your mandatory stops, but you're just going to be sitting there for 10 more seconds. Oh, you have to, no, you're right. You have to serve that separate, don't you?
Yes, you do. Yeah, it is a
that's true.
Pit entry. Same thing as a drive-through. You can't clear a drive-through on an actual pit stop. If you stop in the box and take service, you are not serving your penalty. Now, there's some difference for that in real life. I do know that what they'll do is they'll time the pit exit to pit entry, and they'll know how long a drive-through is, how long a stop and go is, etc. And they'll make them serve that time penalty, the full time penalty, in the box. The stop and go 10 at this point would be, roughly about a minute and 20 seconds. But here in the sim, we cannot do that. They do have to come down the pit lane one additional time, make and serve that stop and go 10 penalty. Here's a bit of a replay. Marco Uric there on the outside, just losing a position, and then subsequently running off track into the dirt. And I actually think Uric is.
That's something. Yeah, that's something extracurricular there. Yeah, it's very strange indeed to see that. We continue to watch some of the replays. Here's the little Mustang now in the 307. Oh, that's the contact with a Porsche just sitting there. Everybody else scrambling. That looks like the 44 Porsche. Very unlucky there. And we have a few more penalties that have come through. Drive-through for car 144. Rejoins poorly, taking out the 19. So a drive-through for the 144. Drive-through for car 548. Dive bomb takeout on the 923. That all this still on lap 1, mind you. Drive-through for car 923. Full throttle against traffic, causing avoidable contact with multiple cars. So drive-through for the 923. A warning for car 34 for avoidable contact, and a racing incident between the 668 and the 19. They have finally, I think, they'll have to confirm with stewards, but I think they have cleared all of the lap 1 penalties.
Yeah, they're going to continue to look through the penalties as well, as there has been a couple more contacts. Of course, Steward's not out of the woods yet. 52.5 minutes remaining on the race. They'll have a couple more to look at as they go through. We just watched Kylie run wide out behind Ted Edwards, catch a little bit of the grass, catch right up to the back of him once again. So Ted, I think, is struggling for consistency here in his Mercedes across Barcelona circuit. Now, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, that these front-engine cars are quite as good around Barcelona as some of the mid-engine cars are. And there we see both of them getting a bit of a wiggle coming out of the chicane. The Porsche is gonna maybe get a good run here, but again, the problem is that the Porsche just has no legs down the straight. Deep into the slipstream is he, but Ted's not even going to necessarily have to go defensive, even though he didn't get the best exit out of the corner. Doesn't even have to go defensive, takes to the outside line, brings it down to the apex as normal. But the Porsche stuck his nose on the outside there, coming in through turn 2, though. Isn't able to settle it back down. The Porsche using its superior brakes to try to get to the outside. Kylie desperately trying to get past Edwards here, as I think he knows he's overall across the lap faster. Just in the passing zones, it's so difficult for a Porsche to come back across a Mercedes here. So Ted, as long as he can keep it steady and not make mistakes, but both of them making slight mistakes coming through sector 2 here. So it's going to be interesting. I think this is going to be just a who makes more mistakes as to who ends up ahead of this battle here in about 5 minutes.
Luca Kiley can just get on the brakes so much more aggressive than Ted Edwards can, but it just doesn't seem like it's enough to make the pass at this juncture. But Kiley's going to continue to try the Coachella Academy Porsche on the Race Ventura AMG. An excellent battle here. Keep in mind, we believe Kiley had contact early in the race. Looks like everything's all repaired now, trying to make their way back up, but finding Ted Edwards here to be a worthy rival and opponent for the moment. It's been several laps and not able to get quite through. Of course, Ted Edwards not trying to let Kiley through either, so it's a good battle indeed for a position on the racetrack. I have been told by the stewards, by the way, that they only have one more incident coming through, and they're all caught up.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a heck of a lap one, but they do, 40 minutes into the race, finally catch up and hopefully have a bit of a breather, maybe get a drink of water. Maybe we'll see him filing out of the steward's box here in a minute and just taking a quick 5-minute smoke break or something. But I would not be surprised after all that.
No.
Io is off track. What happened to him? Looks like he's out on an island by himself. Did he just catch some curb here? He goes wide and catches the, nope, doesn't even catch the curb. Just so, okay. Jesse, do you remember yesterday during Suzuka, what did I say about this McLaren? You run your brake bias so far forward in this McLaren that if you brake ever so slightly wrong, it will just spin like that. And that is what we see Gaio do there. It is so difficult in this McLaren to perfect the brakes and get those consistent across even a 60-minute race, more or less a 90 or an endurance race. And it's something that the pro drivers, yeah, they're good. They're going to do it every single time. But us here in club class, well, that's what happens.
I was just going to say that at all the hallmarks of being a brake bias incident, you don't make it to the middle of the corner and spin out like that unless it's brake bias. But that's a very well proven point right there, Mike Jones. I was quite unaware of what you meant until we had that visual illustration, but that is exactly what has happened. Contact here.
Yeah, it looks like Stachecki's going to stop and pull over as well. I think he knows that he may have caused that contact. No, Stachecki's actually going to keep going. Stewie, do we have a replay of exactly what happened there? Yeah, we do. Let's see what actually happened here. So Stachecki coming up behind the Nissan here. He's going to go for the inside line. Yeah, and he does definitely bump him.
Oof.
He's a little too far back. I think the steward's going to look at that and go, yeah, that's probably a bit optimistic and maybe give him a penalty for it. But unfortunately, Stachecki has not stopped enough. And he's probably going to get a nice little drive-through penalty for that if I know my stewarding rulebook, and in fact I do. So drive-through penalty versus a 15-second penalty if he doesn't slow up here, and it is too late for that. Stewards are going to judge on that pretty soon here, assuming that they do deem that was a bit optimistic, and I think it was. Of course, Alpha will let us know here in a moment. Here's Huel. We've been keeping an eye on him off and on through the race. He's now up at the back of Stachecki as well due to the incident. 548, going to pick up a couple positions from this as well.
Doing everything he needs to do to win a championship is Raphael Huel here. The DC Racing Porsche doesn't need to win today. They've done well enough in this championship to make it to this point, and all they have to do is finish on the podium today, and that will certainly assure a championship for the 548, and they are doing just that. They are third on the podium. Dean Lewis is second, and Cassopolis is leading in the high silver class. Huel doing just a perfect job, stayed out of trouble early, and has continued to circulate and just pick up positions when he can and not fight when he has an option. And it's so tentative, this situation. Unless you've been in it, it's hard to explain. You want to race, you want to go full out like you normally do, but in the back of your mind, there's always the point stable and knowing what could go wrong and what you have to risk. It makes you a safer driver a lot of times. You get involved in these points championships because you have to protect your points lead. You have to protect your car. And I think a little bit of that maybe for Huel, but still excellent pace here today.
Continuing to watch Raphael Huel here come around the track as we potentially await a stewarding decision on Stachecki for the incident with the 668 a couple laps ago. 45 minutes left on the race. About halfway done here. We're going to hear the race announcer give us the halfway mark here pretty soon. Samir Foch has fallen 20 seconds to George Boothby up at the top of the field. And there is the Audi running a little bit wide there, actually. Huell not able to get the move done, but you can see just how much closer he is to the back of that Audi now. You keep talking about it, Jesse, just little mistakes can really make a difference at a track like this, and that's really what it's coming down to here for the mid-pack of the field. Just small mistakes all the way through are making up positions for people left and right. There's a pass going on in the background as well. It looks like Suma and Ren going side by side into the chicane. And I do believe we have, oh, sorry, that's not Suma and Ren. That's actually George Boothby lapping people. I apologize. He was trying to go around him in the chicane, and that's Boothby now going to go around the 668, that back behind them. So these guys are going to get a lap down here pretty soon, halfway into the race. George Boothby so far ahead. He's lapped almost everybody up through the top 10. Here's Samir Foch, Boothby's direct rival. Also, again, he's 20 seconds back, but he's also making up some lap traffic here as he crosses the start-finish line onto lap number 25. One more pit stop to go for these guys. We'll probably see them be coming in within the next 15 to 20 minutes. They have to take tires. They'll likely take some fuel as well while they're in the box. That starts cycling out pretty soon, and then have that final stint of the race start happening.
Just taking a moment here to thank our partners, Race Department, AK Informatica, Drivers 61, Fanatec, and SimRacing.gp. More information about those lovely folks after the checkered flag night. And a 15-second penalty, car 911. That's Kylie, also known as Madre. The names have been jumbled up a little bit in the restart, but 911 brakes too late, hitting the 95 in the rear. 15-second penalty, that on lap 22. Turn 12. Penalties keep coming, Mike Jones.
Yeah, they're just going to keep coming through. I mean, obviously we've had contacts here, we've had contacts there, right? And things keep happening. The stewards are getting, a little bit more of a break from the rush that they were getting early on. But here comes that drive-through from Huell. He's going to go ahead and come in and serve that right away, get that out of the way before the pit stop starts shaking out, so he can figure out where he's at on the track. That means that Huell has drive-through. We're expecting a potential drive-through for Stechecki as well, due to the contact with 668. That may end up putting them in a dead heat once they come out and both come out of the pit lane, potentially, obviously, depending on what happens with Stechecki. There's Timothy Flamger, Maniac Mavericks, 19 Ferrari 480, sorry, not a Ferrari, he's in the McLaren 720S. Second and a half off the back of Lewis in the 114 Audi. And it's interesting, the Audis, it's something I feel we talked about yesterday a little bit. I haven't seen a ton of Audis this year, realistically. There's just not quite as many Audi drivers as there was back in the 2019 BOP when the Audi and Porsche were just the kings of everything. But it's nice to see a couple of the Audis fighting up here near the top because, of course, Stechecki and Lewis both in the top 10. But I do believe we'll see a couple of the Audis tomorrow during the Kyalami race, and the Audis do pretty well at Kyalami.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. The 2019 BOP, you used to see a lot of Audis. In fact, the field was littered with them. And of course, with the newer BOP, they kind of fell out of favor. They were deemed not quick enough to deal with, and the handling was a bit tricky. And usually when that happens, drivers will pick other cars, other things that are either easier to drive or have a better risk versus reward benefit, such as the Porsche, etc., so forth. That may be a bit difficult to drive, but are also incredibly fast, as George Boothby has put on display in this championship this season. But I think the Audi might be on the way back with the new updates. The next time these drivers and teams get to pick cars, I think you might see a few more of those Audis on the grid based on the new BOP. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out in the new year. Speaking of Audis, drive-through for car 144 for taking out the 668. Ryan Gill would say that was pretty slam dunk. I feel like we saw that coming.
Yeah, not only that, it's also going to result in a disqualification for Stechecki as well here momentarily, as I understand from Alpha, as he has exceeded his point limit for the race. Multiple incidents coming out for the 144, and there it is. Teleported back to pits is the 144. disqualified by race control for multiple contacts through the race. And the other Audi, by the way, the 114, as we're watching Pinlot just kind of chug past Edwards here in his Aston Martin. But look at that Mercedes, just nothing to go there, even against an Aston Martin down the straight. Pinlot going to go ahead and pick up a position on Edwards there through the middle part of the race. As I was saying, the 114, that is a drive-through for him as well. Keep in mind that was for track limits, so both Audis struggling here during the center of the race. This is not the first or second DT that we've seen for track limits today, and I think we're going to continue to see those as you continue on through the next 40 minutes. Halfway done, and still plenty of racing to go. Pit stops going to be coming up here pretty soon. Of course, multiple penalties to be served. We got the 911 and the 762, both with time penalties. They'll have to serve those in their pit stop. And meanwhile, the one who does not have any time penalties is George Boothby, 22 seconds ahead. He's going to come across the line, start lap number 28. The man is just cruising. He's out for a Saturday night drive.
He sure is. Just a confirmation, by the way, disqualification for car 144. 144 has been disqualified for reaching license points race limit, not season limit, just license point limit in one single race. He's went through that threshold, has been disqualified. Well, that is not how they wanted their day to go. Rather, unfortunately, it has gone that way. Saw Neil Pimlott a little bit ago passing Ted Edwards. Pimlott's on a recovery drive after their stop and go 10. Additional trip down pit lane. Roman Frawler here, speaking of recovery drive, trying to make up spots. Maybe just a little bit of contact. I really don't think the stewards will care too much about that. And getting on the binders and covering the inside position for Roman Frawler there, maybe. Actually, I don't think that was a position. That was just an overtake nonetheless, though.
Yeah, potentially. We saw the Porsche run a little wide there as well in the background. So these guys still struggling find their braking marks here in the dark. You know, Barcelona, this is one of those tracks that I feel like is so difficult to consistently hit your braking marks. There's not a lot of track markers that you can see on the side, as we're seeing Rogers absolutely dodge Nissan of the 668, who did not follow blue flag rules there and stick to his line. Rogers started going down to the inside. 668 dipped down. Rogers probably had to tap the brake and dive back to the outside. I don't think the stewards are going to look too kindly on that as well, guys. You got to keep an eye on your lines when you're a blue flag car. Act predictably, stay on your line, and make sure that you're making it as easy as possible for the cars to come back across you, rather than having to dodge you in the middle of the track. But he is still fighting here for some position. Is that GTR? That is the gate of Hanilla out ahead. This is not for position. Hanilla is trying to get up to Gallo about 6 seconds up the track. He does, of course, have one more pit stop to go for that, so he maybe pick up some track. Brawler looking like he's much quicker as he just gets hard on the brakes, and that, I think, was the Nissan actually slowing down to come into the pit lane, because you do kind of have to, it's like the same thing as Suzuka. You almost have to slow down a little too much coming out of the last corner, and it can be a little unexpected from the car behind you to slow down because you have to dive into the pit lane. The Porsche is going to get absolutely monstery blocked here by the car in front as the McLaren coming on around. I believe that's the McLaren of Jordan Daly, if I'm not mistaken.
It is the 197.
Yeah, so still in 5th place is that man. He's fallen 5 seconds, but he's just trying to keep away from Pierce here more than anything. So he needs to get the hammer on, because Pierce is only a little over a second back for the pit stop shakeout. He had a good pit stop last time, so we'll see if he's able to nail that stop one additional time as he comes in, stay out ahead of Pierce. But multiple battle for positions, traffic here happening.
Yes, indeed. Very close quarters racing here. 20 cars left in the race at this point, and they're all battling for championships and final placings in the points on the final weekend of not only the season, but you could argue the entire year for RCI, for major competition. Of course, we have the GT4 mini series. I'm not sure what Tom Bryant has decided to actually call that. I just know that
it's just the winter series.
the Winter Series. It's a mini series. It's going to be pretty fun. Mike Jones, did you know that I'm in that race?
Jesse Lee driving in an RCI championship.
And I will be doing, unless we find a broadcaster for that, then I'll be in the booth and I'll sign out. But I don't think that's going to happen, to be completely fair, over the holiday season. I don't have anything else going on. I'm gonna hit the gas pedal.
Well, that should be an interesting one. Unfortunately, as you said, I don't think we'll have a broadcaster for that. As I'm moving basically this time next weekend, and I will not be able to broadcast anymore. So
what do you mean you're moving this time next weekend? You're moving on Christmas Day.
Probably. I'll probably start moving then.
Mike Jones, love you to death. That is the most insane thing I've heard, and I've shared a booth with Ryan Gill.
I mean, I don't really do holiday that much, so I will probably be moving at least most of my stuff over on that day, cleaning up on the 26th, and then doing a little bit of a walkthrough on the 27th. That might get forwarded out today. It depends on if I can drag my brother out here to help me that morning or not, if he gets out of bed. So it'll either be Saturday or Sunday.
let me ask you a question. I got to ask you a serious question. How much money would I have to invest to get your parents on a broadcast?
My parents on a broadcast? Oh, that's...
Yeah. I will sigh and return defeated. Well, here is the state of it. This is Jordan Daly's rear wing of his 197 McLaren, looking back at Thomas Pierce. Thomas Pierce has been through the ringer tonight, but has answered the call every single time, and now threatening to get inside the top five. The 131 Ferrari is tantalizingly close, about a half a second behind Daly. Now, my question is, how defensive does Daly get here? Does Daly kind of let this go, knowing that there's a pit stop coming up, or does Daly defend like his life depends on it here?
I think he pits this time. Or next.
Not the answer I was thinking I was going to get, but we'll see. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think instead of losing time out on the track and burning his tires up more, because it looks like that's what Jordan's struggling with more than anything, is, he's pretty quick on the first 10 to 15 minutes of his stint. Besides for the mistake he made that let Rogers go by, he's been pretty quick, but then his tires are just falling off super hard, which is interesting. Must be an issue with his setup more than anything here. Either that, or he's just locking up his brakes and wearing his tires a little too much. But yeah, I think that's his play. I think that he comes into the pit lane rather than going hard defense on Pierce, because in the end, he wants to look up at Rogers, who's 6 seconds up the field, and see if he can catch back up to him. So if he loses too much time defending against Pierce, running wide like that, maybe getting drive-throughs by pushing it as hard as he is, going to continue to bleed time. He's already lost about a half second this lap on Rogers. Here's the 131 poking down to the inside through the turn 11-12 section. Not able to get it done this time is Pierce, but maybe he pits this lap. If he doesn't, he's coming in the next one.
Very interesting about Jordan Daly. Looked so quick in that first stanza of the race. Got by Rogers convincingly so, and left him in the dust.
Ooh, Pierce coming in.
Place. And Pierce is coming in. I think that's a great call. The second he realized Daly wasn't coming in, that's the smart call for Thomas Pierce. If the guy you're racing is not going to come in, try to undercut him yourself. And right on schedule, the 131 down the pit lane. But going back to Daly, very interesting, because it looked like they were shot out of a cannon in that first stint, and they came to pit road, and then it seemed like they just didn't have the pace. So almost like they missed some of the changes in pit lane. I'll be curious to see if he can right the ship here, because he has been bleeding a little bit of time, and he wasn't doing that at the very beginning of the race. We'll see if he can get the pace back in the 197. This is Samir Foch navigating lapped traffic, solidly second place, and I'm afraid to say, barring some wild card shenanigans tonight, I think he's going to finish second, and I think he's going to finish second in the championship as well. Nothing to turn up your nose at, surely. It was an excellent challenge this season by Samir Foch, the Mustache Racing Team exclamation point Ferrari has done everything they can do. It's sometimes, Mike Jones, and I think you and I both know this, sometimes some drivers just refuse to be beaten.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. He's not wanting to give up, but in the end, I mean, he's going to be beaten, and it's going to be beaten by this man right here for the moment. I mean, of course, 31 minutes left on the race. It's something that, you know, anything can happen, of course, right? Bad move on some lap traffic and shoot towards Boothby off the track. But Samir Foch, I think, at this point, looks like he's being beaten by George Boothby. 30 minutes left, and Boothby is just checked out so far. Pit stops should happen here momentarily. He'll get the last one in and cruise to victory. Remainder of the race here. Yassi 75 Porsche doing pretty well here at the back end. I'm curious to see what him and Malinowski can do tomorrow in their Porsche and Kyalami. Of course, Porsche not super strong.
Oh,
at
no.
Kyalami.
I haven't looked at the entry list.
Yeah.
Are you telling me?
Oh yeah.
Are you telling me Fast Pasta and George Yukog Boothby are in the same car?
You know that they're both Yassi drivers now, right?
Well, well, yeah, I do know that in fact, but I didn't realize they were the ones
that's
teaming up in this race.
That's why Boothby and Jardier have been driving the Porsche recently.
Yeah, but that's what I would. But so who is Jardier driving with tomorrow?
I believe he's driving with Murphy. That's who it is. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name offhand. So he's driving Amon Murphy, which also very quick driver. They, however, I believe are in the new BMW, which of course will be a slight bomb.
Now that's fancy.
Not something we see very often here at RCI.
Yeah.
Oh nope, no, okay. They changed. They're now in a Porsche as well.
I was wondering why they were in a BMW. I was gonna say, oh, are they doing that for the fun of it? And then Porsche, they got kind of serious. Well, I don't want to rewrite the story, but it's going to be difficult to make any argument that anybody is going to beat Tortellini, as I call him. His real name's Malinowski. I call him Torts and Tortellini, and George Boothby. I just, oh dear.
I don't know. I mean, they're in a the Porsche isn't the best at Kyalami though.
I mean, it's also not bad at Kyle.
It's not. I'm looking at the entry list right now. Looking to see if I can find. Unfortunately, what I would have said is the FFS team was going to be real quick, but unfortunately, they've had obviously a couple of their members have to drop out of the race due to illness. So they had a very quick lineup looking. I think it was Noble, Franca, and kind of Chowglu. But now they've had to add Torvin and Samuel into that mix. They'll be driving 5 people in their Lambo.
They're gonna put
tomorrow.
5 people in that car.
5 people in that car. Yeah,
that's gonna be. I'm gonna love interviewing them. Getting 5 people in the box. That's gonna be absolutely brilliant. Grandfather Glock, by the way, has said George had a last lap wheel disconnect last week. Don't talk about guaranteed wins. Right? You are Grandfather Glock. You are 100% correct.
Glock, if you need Jesse's address to come after him for the grandfather jokes,
you don't need to do that
after the race.
Realistically, this is your son's fault, not mine.
You know who else I'm going to be keeping an eye on tomorrow, Jesse Lee? One of the fan favorites cars are back, and they're in a weird car as the 778 gets themselves a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. Tassopoulos is going to crawl down the order as he comes in and serves himself another minute 10 in the pit lane for that stop and go 30. Unfortunate for him, that's going to put him so far down. Jesse, once he comes out of the pit lane, I think there's going to be some more math to do for that high silver class. The class that he's at. He's in the pro class.
Well, here's the thing about Tassopoulos is that is a dagger to the heart for the 778 team. Just we've seen so many of those ever since 1.8 update. We've seen so many more penalties in pit lane because it's everybody had in their head, this is how I come down pit lane. This is when I get on my limiter. You've had to change that. And also it's dark. Maybe you don't see where the commitment line and the pit in and the pit out line is. A lot of different things that can go wrong. And there's just been so many more penalties recently. We saw it in the SRO race today. We've seen it here. We saw it in the Friday champ as well. It's a bit of a predicament that a lot of the teams have been putting themselves in. Again, it's the most recent victim of that. And that's going to do absolutely nothing but help some of his competitors.
I agree. I mean, Flamger is obviously the one that he's fighting for points. He's only 10 points ahead at the start of the race. Pass a pulse above Flamger, so that's going to put Flamger in an excellent position. Eventually take over that slot from him at the end of this one. Currently on board with the Coach Anna Academy 911 Porsche. Watching him come around the track, and here's a bit of a replay. Neil Pimlott kind of sliding past there, and then there's some contact as they're coming through and out of turn 10 into turn 11, and put a bit of a block on the ladies of Ted Edwards and Hanla in his GTR. Anyway, Jesse, back to Kyalami. Fan favorites team MSVR participating in full force tomorrow. That's Simon Keeble, Jason Kellaway, and Oscar Poole. They're not in an Aston Martin, so we're going to have to pull them into the box to make fun of them. They're in a Porsche.
Oh, dear. You know what I think they've done? I think a lot of these teams have went with the meta for this race because they're actually trying to win the race. Here's the thing. The Jardier, I think that's the official title. The Jardier 9 Hours of Kyalami, I believe is the official title, right?
Yeah. Kyalami 9 Hour, because that's how it is.
Kyalami 9 Hour, yes indeed.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Everybody wants to win races in general, but you really try to win races with big names attached to it, and everybody, of course, Jardier, I love his style. He doesn't want to just put on a race. He doesn't want to have a race put on. He wants a race that can be put on and he can get in as well. You got to love that. That'd be like having a Mike Jones series, Mike Jones actually being a part of it, though you were a part of Night Owl for several seasons.
For a while, yeah. Till I stopped racing as much. I'm considering the possibility after I move. I'm gonna have to see how my ping is doing. Not gonna have great internet once I move, and I'm considering I gotta see how the ping is doing. See if I can jump back into Night Owl next season. Probably not next season. Maybe the season after that, perhaps. But we'll see how that kind of shakes out. And of course, we're doing racing in iRacing, some of the special events. Me and Jordan Daly, Ryan Mawson, along with Brian Gill and William Stephenson, to join the LMP2 class at Daytona 24 Hour. Jesse helped us out on some crew thieving abilities there. Tom Bryant and his HWT team as well, also going to be joining the LMP2 class.
I've actually already had some conversations with some of them of what they can expect. I've done those races several times over and have a little bit of experience. You've been around the block a few times, and told them some things that they need to pay attention to and look out for, and kind of given some general guidance. But also on the race day, there's some things that typically happen. Races like that are crazy. They're very chaotic at the start. Always helps to have an extra set of eyes, especially ones with some experience. So it's going to be an interesting start to the year as well. Sim racing season never really ends. It just sort of rolls into the next season. That's the great thing about sim racing. You can do it anywhere, anytime. But tonight, a very special night as the final season ends for the year here on RCI TV. We're happy that you are with us, and a big old wiggle there from Lewis, getting all sorts of sideways, but collecting it nonetheless and continuing on. But that was a scary moment indeed, especially if you were Madre in the 911 on the outside and you saw that car sideways. You shouldn't see the rear wing from that perspective.
Yeah, if the car is beside you and you're seeing the rear wing straight on, you know you're going, uh-oh. But it was a nice hold by Lewis to get that thing back out. And of course, Madre, who is indeed Kylie here, just a little bit of a different name because of the way we had to set the entry list for the race, is still got his pit stop to do, so he's going to come back out. Speaking of pit stops, Tassapoulos did come in for his slap and go 30, as Sebastian Bernier called it. Only lost a few positions, so he only fell behind Lewis, and that should play into his favor for points against Flamger. Of course, Ted Edwards will have to enter in the points after the session, figure out exactly where Flamger and the Tassapoulos cars will come out. Kylie diving in the pit lane for his final pit stop. George Boothby is going to have to come in within the next 6.5 minutes or the pit window will close. And of course, he won't make it. Kylie actually hard on the brakes there, almost stopped. I'm wondering if he sped into the pit lane a little bit and went, oh crap, and tried to stop a little too much to overcompensate. We'll have to see if perhaps he gets himself a stop and go 30. We're going to catch the dashboard here. Let's see the speed. No, he was good. He just stopped a little too much. I don't think he quite knew where the line was, maybe. So shouldn't get a stop and go 30 for the pit entry, at least.
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's also been the lighting update in 1.8. 1.8 was such a huge milestone for the sim. It updated the lighting and it changed your perception of where things were. And added to that, the new pitting rules. You have to be at the pit road speed, at the line, not on the limiter at the line. Change things up as well. Everybody having to relearn these behaviors that they were oh so familiar with. Race leader in the pit lane for what should be the very final time of the season. Coconuts in chat asking, Night Owl for 2022. You bet there will be. Night Owl's not going anywhere, neither any of the mainline RCI series for 2022. But again, a huge announcement looms on the horizon, RCI 2.0. And as we mentioned earlier, something for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're a staff member here, a driver, a fan of sim racing. There is something in that announcement for literally everybody, and that is a good thing. Just a whole host of updates and new things for 2022. We're dubbing it RCI 2.0, but all of our mainline series absolutely the same, not going anywhere, just bigger and better for the brand new year. A lot to look forward to, Mike.
No, and that's really what it is, right? It's just a lot to look forward to. A lot of changes coming in. RCI is, almost a year and a half old. Actually, sorry, a little over a year and a half old once the new year starts. So it'll be something that was just time for a bit of a refresher. And of course, at the heart of most of the rework, I'm not going to say quite all of it, but at the heart of most of the rework is, of course, our cameraman right here today, Benjamin Heilman, aka Stewie, putting some awesome work in on the website. It was supposed to be a bit of a temporary website to start with, and he put it together for us, and it just kept continuing. We're like, well, you know what, man? Why don't we just go further with it? And he has put in so much extra time during his free time to do so. And we've been talking about the new website for a long time. Very excited to show it off, get everybody using it, and get it. In the end, it's easier for everybody involved, for the public and for the staff, and it should allow us to not only make a little bit of less mistakes here and there, such as tonight. There was a slight mistake made in the server setup that we had to reset the server. A couple minutes of delay, no big deal. But in the end, even slight mistakes like that should be alleviated. It'll be a lot easier for the drivers. There's livery rules coming in for the new year, and that's all I'm going to say on that.
Are you leaking right now, Mike Jones? Are you leaking ahead of your own announcement? Is that what's happening?
We already have a few times. That's fine. Neil Pimlott going to slide past Gaio here as he served his penalty earlier, trying to make his way back up the field just a little bit. He's got his work cut out for him to get up to the back of Huel, but he's going to try it. 17 minutes remaining. Pit window's going to close here in a moment. Everybody has made their 2 mandatory pit stops. Brawler that we were following on board with for a moment, though, does have a drive-through penalty. So he's going to have to come down the pit lane one more time regardless.
I'm disappointed in you, Mike Jones, leaking your own announcement. Racing incident between the 911 and the 6. That was quite a while ago. That was on lap 26. No further actions on the contact between the 913 and the 38, and also between the 913 and the 30 again. That's on the same lap, lap 34, 2 different corners, both making contact with each other, but inconsequential. So no further action. The stewards were actually just talking to us a moment ago and saying that, strangely enough, they've given out significant penalties tonight, but the majority have come from self-inflicted track errors, such as speeding in the pit lane and going out of the track limits. Quite humorously, the stewards haven't had to do the bulk of the work in that respect.
No, Elf is saying 6 different track limits so far for drive-thrus. To be honest, I'm a little surprised that's all it's been. Barcelona absolutely notorious for drive-through for track limits. There's a few tracks that you kind of have that at. Barcelona being one of them. Suzuka being one of those. It's so easy to cut the course at a couple different sections. But this is one of the bigger ones as well. There's so much room here on this track, the actual track surface, that you feel like you can expand the corners out a little bit, and that costs you, as the 911 Porsche looking to the outside of Ted Edwards there through turn 3. An absolute blazing drive going all the way off the track there. The stewards might not look too kindly at that. All the way off the track as he comes into the corner. The Mercedes going to get a little bit of a cut back there. There's a car off. There's a car off in front. Cuts across the track. He gets out of the way just soon enough.
That's the GTR.
Yeah, it's one of the
38.
GTRs, because I think it's a 38. Yeah, it was. So that is now a position in front of them as well. They're going to be looking at the other car. We're going to catch the replay here of that. It looks like he just caught
already
the grass,
lost it.
and there it is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Big hit.
Big off and into the barrier there. That's not where I thought that accident was. So the 38 was several cars ahead of these two. There is Ted Edwards and Madre, and that is lost in positions. That would be for position, but now that 38 GTR heavily damaged, as they're all going to have to try and navigate each other. Madre trying to get through the GTR, and Ted Edwards would like a spot back too.
Yeah, he would. I'm curious if the stewards will take a look at the pass. Oh, Ted going really deep there, as these guys are checking up for potentially for the damage on the GTR. But I'm wondering if the stewards will take a look at that pass, as the Porsche kind of did it a bit off track. This Nissan having all sorts of grip issues, running wide out of the corner again, a little bit of sideways. 911 wants that position. He's deep in the slipstream there. Such a bad exit off the GTR. He's going to get the look. There's a car coming out of the pit lane, though. This is very dangerous, as the 6 car is coming out of the pit lane for his drive-through penalty. But luckily, just far enough away, he gets on off the track and says, hey, guys, why don't you go? Look at this. Dodging left and right is Ted Edwards. The 911 gets through, and now down into turn 3. Ted Edwards on the inside. Race Ventura 95 Mercedes going to come on past, and he should have that position locked down for the moment. Now he's going hunting for the Porsche,
he missed the corner.
He runs wide into turn 4, and the Nissan is gonna look at him again, but you can see just how unstable that Nissan is with the damage on the front end. The Porsche, though, the Porsche sideways as well out in front. This is getting frisky here during the last part of the race. Here's the replay. Let's watch the Porsche come in to turn into
just
the turn,
overcooked
and you can see him. Yeah, he did. He didn't get quite as sideways as I thought he did, but he barely was so close to losing that.
Passing under yellow is allowed, kind of. If you cause an incident or you gain a position, the stewards aren't going to like that, and they're going to order you to probably return the position or just give you a penalty for it. It sort of is whenever it can't be helped. Of course, things like that have to be reported, etc., and so forth, unless it's seen. But so the answer is not really, but it is inevitable that passes will happen under yellow flags, just like the real thing. It's sort of self-policing in a lot of cases, but when it isn't, of course, steward adjudication, they look down on that passing under yellow. I know there's been several precedents set here by the RCI stewards about passing under yellows is absolutely not allowed. And even more to that point, I've seen them give penalties for not slowing down for an incident that was up the road. You get a little bit of time before you're expected to slow down. Going full speed through an accident zone, absolutely frowned upon.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? I mean, passing under the yellows isn't quite going to be as strict as it is in a real life situation, because especially since the yellows aren't consistent, those are all client side rather than server side. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, but we will very much, I mean, if something is very obvious, and say, like Jesse said, if something's very obvious, they will do it, right? If somebody's very obviously slowing for a car in front, someone comes flying past them, I've seen penalties for it. I've argued for penalties for it. I've reported against them, in races that I've been in fact. So it's definitely something that they'll take a look at. Yeah. Back on board with Alex Rogers here. He has distanced himself and Jordan Daly, who he was fighting with pretty consistently early on in the race. Daly now 10 seconds back. Daly did not make up any time up to Pierce, but Rogers is staring at the back of Mellis out there in front of him. Got 11 and a half minutes to make up this time, and I think he can do it here, Jesse Lee. He's been catching him a little bit, even though he lost a little time on the last lap.
What a comeback for Alex Rogers, though. Ellis, I'm going to feel almost bad for the 15 Ferrari if Rogers gets there and makes this pass because Ellis has not put a foot wrong all race. None of the top three have. Boothby has been absolutely immaculate. Samir Foch has put up a heck of a fight here and done everything he could do. And Mellis has just been unflappable themselves. It's been these three all day long, and Rogers has been in a little bit of a slog all day and
replay on that one, Stewie?
position. But Alex Rogers, the Porsche Lerner drivers team, nearly losing it here, coming off the curb. We're going to see it here. I think he just gets a little deep here. He hits the inside curve and almost a Spinalla, but not quite. Saves it. But that is, folks, that is hard to do in a Porsche.
Yeah, so Rogers still at P4, but that lost him so much time from Mellis. He's lost doubled the time, I believe. Yeah, he was at 2.6 at the start of the lap. To come across the line here, it's looking more like 5 to no, it is even more, 5.8. So Rogers potentially, because of that, may have just lost his chance at catching up to the back of Mellis up in front of him. Still 10 minutes to go. We're not going to write it off yet, but Pierce is now closer to him than Mellis is, and that is not what Rogers wanted to see. All of these cars out in the front, though, are still just kind of distanced away from each other. This is one of the closer battles on track that I was just I was looking at on the timing screen. This is Mustak here. He's only a second and a half off the back of Ren. Huel 2.5 back from him. So might see a bit of a battle here, especially since that 668 has been struggling here back in the bottom of the race in that Nissan. The Nissan, I'm sad to say, Jesse, that however much I think the 1.8 patch definitely helped the Nissan a little bit. I'm hoping, as Kunos is now allowed to do so, adjust off of the real life BOP from the cars that are no longer active in some of the series. Maybe we can see the Nissan make a bit of a resurgence with the next BOP patch that we've should be seeing probably towards the end of the year or so. About the time some of the real life stuff happens, we'll probably see a little bit of a balancing patch, as we generally do. A month, 2 months after we see a release and a big resurgence on or a big balancing on a lot of the cars.
You know, it's interesting. I was talking to Dan from Driver 61 in the SRO event today, and I asked him point blank, I was like, do you think with the custom BOP they're allowed to do with the GTR, does that make it esports viable for a lot of the big name drivers? We tend to agree that it might in 2022. It might make the GTR a spicy option to have for certain series. It's all track dependent, of course, but the GTR having independent BOP being brought into line with a lot of the Evo cars for the modern BOP, I think it's brilliant. You're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see more Audis in the future, more takers with that car. You're going to see more GTRs. Dare I say, even more Jaguars at some point. Simply because they have independent BOP, the Nissan GTR and the Jaguar. I think that some of those cars that are considered meme cars, joke cars, could actually become esports viable cars in 2022. I'm excited to see if anyone's willing to give it a try.
Here's the question, though. We think that, quote, esports viable. Do we think that potentially for the SRO series that they'll be allowed? That's the thing. I mean, because obviously, if it's not part of the real life series, they may not allow it. It's only under the special occasions, such as the one driver who is actually driving a real life GTR still. That's a special exception. Brian Hedecotter, I think it's Brian something. I think it's Brian Hedecotter. He is driving a Nissan GTR in some of the real life series, so he was allowed to race it in the North American SRO series. But it'll be interesting to see if maybe the SRO team does allow that next year. Of course, while I'm involved in the administration of that, not necessarily as much as the organization, they all kind of decide what they do, and then we kind of go from there. But it'll be something that'll be interesting to see. And regardless of what happens, I mean, if we run our own esports events, SimGrid runs their esports events, whoever runs their esports events, it'll be something that'll be very interesting to see if some of the Nissan, some of the Jags, maybe some of the Rexes,
Yeah. See, it's a tempting prospect though, because you talk about Hedecotter, and you have the precedent there, be like, they're still running it, and you try to get people to get involved with it. I feel like, For our championships, it'll be allowed. There'll be other championships that it will be allowed in esports level championships. I mean, and it would be curious to see if they allow that at the tippy top of ACC esports. I think they should. If it's in there and it's BOP'd, I reckon it should be allowed, not just the cars that are currently running, because I feel like that is excluding a lot of great cars that you otherwise wouldn't get to do. But final 6 minutes in the season, and if you're just joining us, hello. I hope you're having a happy evening. Jesse Lee, Mike Jones, and Stewie in the box with you tonight. And it has been a fantastic race for Georgia Boothby, who's looking to be crowned Night Owl champion tonight. Nobody standing in his way. And what a great night it has been for them. A little bit more contact with Mustak there again. That 44 has swapped more paint than any other car. That might be unfair considering their Dayglow green, and it stands out. But beyond the point, contact with Rin in the 668 there.
Yeah, and that keeps happening. I feel like, stewards aren't going to think too much about that. Maybe might think of giving Mustak a warning if they deem it necessary. But here's the replay of it. Just because of the long distance dive here, he really tried to capitalize.
Oh, yeah, baby!
Really tried to capitalize on that Ferrari coming through. Broke as late as possible, and that was a hit.
Look, the Porsche, I know what people are going to say about that. That was a sin, and you're absolutely right, it was. But that Porsche can brake later than almost everything else on the track.
Yep.
It can surely brake later than a Nissan GTR. I think that's what happened. That looked nasty, but I guarantee you, Mustak didn't mean to do that. He was just braking probably where he normally would. He might have missed it a little bit because he was on the inside, but still, contact there. And perhaps one final thing for the stewards to look at. Speaking of, no further action, or excuse me, racing incident between the 911 and the 38 for minor contact on lap 40. That's the only other report that we have gotten in the past 15 minutes. Race has cleaned itself up, and as Alpha was telling us earlier, the vast majority of the penalties were self-inflicted and didn't have to have a steward's review. George Boothby marching to a championship in pro, becoming the Night Owl champion. He, I assume, I don't know this for sure, joined this series, the Night Owl series, to tune himself up on that Porsche.
Yep.
He only just adopted it a couple of months ago.
There's another dive.
Oh my
what
goodness.
What is going on here? That dive from the purple Porsche back behind Huel, desperately trying to get past Mustak there, threw it down into the corner. I think we saw the opposite thing happen from last lap, where the Nissan just not being able to brake as late as those Porsches can. Mustak gets the cutback though and gets out through turn 11 before Huel does, and you can see the car out behind now. I believe that was is that Daly or is that Gaio's McLaren? That is Daly now kind of stuck there. Fortunately for Daly, he's not in danger of necessarily getting past or having to pass anybody, but he was catching up to Pierce up until he caught this pack. Now he's 4.5 seconds back with only 3 minutes to go. I don't think he's got much of a chance because he'd have to dig his way through 3 fighting lap traffic cars here.
Yes, indeed. Final moments of the race, final moments of the season. This is the last of the RCI Seasonal Championships, as I mentioned earlier. We will have a Winter Championship, GT4s. It's going to be really fun to watch, and we don't know if that will be broadcast, but beyond that, that is the end of our scheduled broadcasting for 2021. I just want to thank every single one of you. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege to share this racing with you. We hope that you had fun at least as much as we have had bringing it to you this season, and we wish you the very best tidings for the season and a happy holidays to all of you if we don't see you before the new year. Of course, tomorrow, though, we do have the Jardier Kalami 9 hour of Kalami, and we hope that you join us with that. Not the end of our programming for the year, but the end of our seasonal programming, and getting a little bit spicy here right around 10th place.
Yeah, Mustak did end up with a penalty for that contact against the Nissan. That dive, the stewards decided that was indeed enough for a warning because of it. And since he got a warning earlier in the race, it was increased to a 5-second penalty. So multiple warnings from Mustang coming out. That's going to cost him all of these. All of this fight is now more or less invalidated for him. So at this point, it's more a matter of pride out on track to keep this steady, potentially pick up a position. This should be 2 laps to go. Here's Huell going to go ahead and let Jordan Daly drop out of the back of this. He knows he's got that position on Mustang at this point. Jordan, again, he's actually still catching Pierce, even though he's following this traffic. So Jordan has got to be frustrated at this point. He knew that he had the pace to catch up to Pierce, and he's not going to be able to do it. Leader now on the final lap. Boothby just crossed the line in his 75 Porsche. Here he is, the Yas Heat Mobile coming into turn 1 for the final time. Well, I feel like we keep saying that, and what is it that we say about him? Oh, he's quick. Okay, it's George Boothby. Yep, okay, next. And there he is right there. He's dirty. George, you need to stop and car wash.
Yeah. Mike Jones, every time he gets in the booth, he starts antagonizing the drivers. George Boothby, just unflappable this season. He joined Yas Heat. He joined the Porsche gang, and he was trying to learn this car. Joined his stream multiple times, trying to get a handle on it. Used RCI as a test bed, perhaps, for bigger events. And he has done exactly what he set out to do. Learn the Porsche 911. I think he's done that, and to great effect. He's going to be Night Owl champion, and it wasn't even realistically that close today. He has dominated this championship in many respects, and what a season it's been. It's going to be surely mission accomplished for the new Yas Heat driver on his Porsche journey.
Yeah, and this is, of course, one of the initial championships that he will be driving in the Porsche. He did not bring home the victory for the Friday championship due to a couple other issues, but he finished in P2, tied with Jardier, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember if he got overtaken by P4 or not. We have to take a look at the Friday championship splits again. But here he is coming through the final sector. You can see just the absolute focus coming out of that visor right there. As he crests in.
Oh, look at him!
Look at him! He's just like, no, my car isn't dirty enough. I'm gonna wreck it as well.
Wait,
George,
was that? Oh, that was the start-finish line. Okay.
Yeah. George, your engineer is going to have a couple words with, or sorry, your team principal is going to have a couple words with you. He might get his salary taken away for that.
I'm going to tell you something. George is lucky he doesn't drive for me, because if he did, I'd give him a colossal bollocking for that. You don't crash the car, even after you crash the line. But victory celebration in his own way. George Boothby crashes the car in victory. Boothby is your Night Owl Pro Series champion. And you can't forget about Samir Foch, given everything he had all season long. Just unfortunately, the one man he couldn't beat was named Boothby. But excellent second place, a stellar season for Samir Foch, and he needed it here. Confidence building for Samir. Second place in the race and in the championship. And what about Alessio Mellis, the Total Racing 15 Ferrari? Hasn't put a foot wrong all day. It is going to get rewarded with a final race podium. Well done, Alessio Mellis.
Yeah, Mellis, just an absolute blazing drive did he have today, starting 15th in the points, no podiums, no fast laps, no pole positions. Raced in every single race this season, if I'm not mistaken. Comes home with a podium in the final race. The Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo really coming in strong here at Barcelona. And here comes Pierce across the line as well in P5. Rogers did end up with that P4. Jordan Daly, a very strong finish from him, even with the issues that he had through the middle stint in P6. He had the pace to catch up to Thomas Pierce. Unfortunately, got caught up behind some lap traffic. There's Flamger across the line in P7 as well. The 548 of Huell, unfortunately, did not get the top step of the podium for the race in the high silver class, but I think he has eased out enough points to take the victory ahead of Tassopoulos and Flamger. Tassopoulos, of course, getting that stop and go 30 when he sped through the pit lane earlier was just absolutely terrible for him. Lost so much time out on the track, and it was a beautiful fight all the way to the end, but Huell should take that victory as the cars are out here doing donuts for the finale.
Results of the race confirmed the final checkered flag for Night Owl in 2021. And as far as we know, George Boothby has won the Pro Series Championship. Raphael Huell has won the High Silver Championship. I believe Eggert has won the silver championship over Mustak, but only just, according to my math. And Roman Frawler, who had a frustrating race today, ends up coming home 20th, but still had a massive points lead, will win in AM as well. Partner, it's been a wild race. It's been a wild season. Thank you for joining me on some of these races in place of Mr. Ryan Mawson and Stewie as well for being here. Of course, a very busy man in his own right and taking time to not only commentate with me as well, but also run the cameras. Thank you all. It's been a fantastic 20.
And of course, we will be back tomorrow for the Jardier 9 hours of Kyle as we're watching again this turn one chaos that happened. Kept the stewards busy 40 minutes deep into the race. But in the end, the race ended up relatively clean. Jesse Lee, I have, however, one final present for you before you go. You said something about giving somebody a bollocking, and now they're in the booth. Please, he deserves a bollocking after crashing his car.
I said if he drove for me, he does and he drives for Yaz. He doesn't have to listen to me, but it is your Pro Series champion of Night Owl, Yaz Heat 75, George Boothby. Welcome, George.
Hello, hello. How are we doing?
We're doing really good. Let me ask you something. Does having a kid make you faster on the racetrack? Because it sure looks like it does.
I think it does. Yeah. I mean, it makes me a lot more tired on the racetrack. I appreciate my bed more. Yeah, it's going all right.
George, you set off this season to learn the Porsche. You've been working with Jardier and the Yaz Heat guys. You wanted to learn the Porsche. I've seen you. I've been in your stream watching you work on your racecraft with the car. Is this mission accomplished to you? Is this the culmination of all of your hard work, winning a championship in the Porsche? Is that the end all be all for you, or is there more for George Boothby in that Porsche now?
Yeah, I feel like this is the start really, and with this journey, because I feel like I've still got a lot more to learn with this car. I feel like this championship has been really good for me to like just do different tracks, you know, because I'd never normally pick Barcelona to drive on my own, but you know, so and quite a few other tracks, just it's nice to mix it up and just figure out a setup. And obviously, when I get a setup for one track, I can sometimes use that for another track. So that's what I've just been working on and trying to basically I've just been trying to enter as many championships as I could over this past month. So yeah, it's definitely working out. I feel like I'm almost there. 1.8, the new update, obviously, it mess things up a little bit. You know, it's a little bit of a bump in the road, but I'm working around it and figuring out how it works. And yeah, like I'm really happy with today. I did not think I'd be able to be this quick around here in the Porsche, and it worked. Like the setup worked. So yeah, I'm really happy, and hopefully I can just keep plowing ahead and figuring out this car more. But it's good. It's feeling good so far.
Well, you got 9 hours at Kyalami tomorrow with the Porsche man himself,
George,
Malinowski.
yeah, speaking of,
Jesse had some words
I
about
have
this.
a
30
bone to
minutes
pick
ago.
with you, George. You're teaming up with Malinowski for the Jardier 9 hours of Kyalami here on RCI TV tomorrow. What is wrong with you? Did you not just want to give anybody else a chance to win that race?
I mean, he's my teammate technically, so I
know
mean,
that, but it's unfair. It's just unfair.
I mean, to be fair, we did a race today earlier, and Mache managed to get 2 drive-throughs. So, you know, maybe that's his way of trying to give
nobody
people
was
a chance.
surprised.
Oh dear, George, can I just say a class act? I always said that you're a lovely person, can't stand you on the racetrack though. But George Boothby, your Night Owl champion, final champion here of RCI for 2021, and he did it in the Porsche. Still learning the car. Mike, do you have anything for our champion?
No, not really, Matt. I mean, I suppose we will bug you tomorrow at Kyalami. Keep Malinowski in check for us. Make sure that he's not getting flashy in his Porsche. We don't want him drifting around any corners and embarrassing the rest of the Porsche drivers, as there is quite a few of them, as we found out. Murphy and Jardier themselves driving in the Porsche. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it should be a good race. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Kyalami's like my favorite track, so
Well, and
glad-
you're the triple 24-hour winner at Kyalami.
yeah, we gotta
One of.
represent. We gotta represent. So.
Well, George, we will see you tomorrow. I'll let you hopefully get some sleep, man, before then. As you said, I'm sure you're nice and tired with the new kid and need to be up early tomorrow morning for Kyalami. So have a good night, man. Congratulations on the victory. Like Jesse said, the final championship victory here in RCI for 2021. So
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
all right, Boothby. Well, Jesse, it's been a good season. I'm glad to have been able to be back in Night Owl in some fashion for at least a few of the races. Got to come out to Bathurst, which is, of course, my favorite track, and commentate that one earlier in the season as well, which is where Boothby did not necessarily have his best race and still came out up on top. 2022 will bring, of course, Night Owl Season 8. Ted Edwards deep into planning for that one at the moment, and well, Kyalami tomorrow. We've about 8 more hours, 9 more hours, not that long.
Something like that in the Jardier 9 Hours of Kyalami coming up here on RCI TV. Set your reminder, like, subscribe, click the bell, do all the things. You're going to want to join us. It's going to be Mike Jones and me back in the booth, so not a whole lot is going to change for the start of that race, and it's going to be a fantastic 9 hours in South Africa. And of course, we do have the winter special season in GT4s that will happen as well. I don't know if signups are closed on that yet, but either way, that coming up as well. That likely will not be broadcast, but very special thank you to all of you for joining us on this ride this season. It's been incredible stuff for Night Owl and all the other championships as well. We wish you the very best for the holiday season, and the only thing left to say is to thank our partners, racedepartment.com, your source of sim racing news, AK Informatica, for providing our servers, driver61.com. You get 25% off your driver coaching at driver61.com by using our discount code, link in the description. Fanatec.com, your source of top quality sim racing equipment. Fanatec.com, you can use our affiliate link. It doesn't charge you anything, and it may help us with things like server cost and the like. And if you're tired of racing in pub lobbies, simracing.gp is your destination for excellent community-based racing. Mike Jones, been an absolute pleasure. Stewie, thank you for putting up with the both of us. I know that can't be too easy. The sun's setting on the championship and the season, but we're not done yet. We'll see you in just about 8 hours for Kyalami. Until then, we'll see you next time. Have a good night.